Out of the gates and ready to go. The Wednesday edition upon us for Hot Mic across the OutKick Network. Hutton Withrow here. Glad you're with us. 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Bobby Carpenter joins us to talk all things college football. Big Ten, new commissioner, the former Big Ten football player at Ohio State, former Dallas Cowboy. He'll be with us to chat all things Big Ten. That's in 20 minutes. Chad, we have Colt Knost back on the show today, CBS Sports golf analyst, co-host of the Subpar podcast. He was in Augusta, a part of the CBS online coverage. We'll get his take and reaction to everything that happened at the Masters with Jon Rahm's win and guns. Mike Gunzelman in studio later today in hour number 3. Chad, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Hutton. Big day on the show. Great guest list. We're going to go a little bit of everywhere, which I enjoy on a Wednesday.
We're streaming live at YouTube. You can join us by subscribing to the OutKick channel and the digital space. That is the direction everyone's headed. And, Chad, that's the signal that the Big Ten gives to everyone by their hire of Tony Petitti, who is the new commissioner of the Big Ten. We've talked about this for the last couple of months. The hire for the Big Ten, pairing that person with Greg Sankey, is the future of college sports. They're going to lead the direction that everyone will follow. And the direction that the Big Ten decided to take is a similar one to Kevin Warren, a behind-the-scenes person in the sports world. And in this case, you have the guy who succeeded Rob Manfred in Major League Baseball as the COO when Manfred became the commissioner in 2015. Prior to that, he was brought on board by Major League Baseball to start MLB Network. That has turned into MLB.TV, which is a massive success. And then you have, prior to that, his experience with CBS. Makes a lot of sense.
I've long asked the question, when will one of these conferences just simply turn to a TV person? Because it's all about the TV money and the TV revenue, and that's essentially what the Big Ten has done by hiring Tony Petitti, because that's what he did as COO. When you look at the job description with Major League Baseball, it was overseeing digital and everything with that, but it's also overseeing every single television contract with the league and with affiliate teams. So that was a part of his job description. So I read that and think, who else would be better than to lead a conference into the next era of whatever is happening with television rights, with a complicated television deal coming for the Big Ten and all the digital rights and everything else going on, the streaming wars that are happening right now, than a guy who's done it for a league. He's done it at the network level also. An extremely varied resume for Petitti. I like this move for the Big Ten. Wasn't someone I initially thought about, but I was thinking straight pluck from TV. This is someone who's worked in TV, then worked on a league side with television networks. So that resume, I think, bodes well for what the Big Ten needs.
And also, I mean, he was involved in esports for a bit.
For a year.
The 33rd Team online, he's involved in that website. And he was also, when I say involved, he's backing it, he's running it, and then also he remains on the board for the USGA currently. So I mean, a lot of different. He stokes the fire in a lot of different areas of the sports media world, and for a conference that really doesn't. I mean, when I say doesn't have something in front of them, they don't have the TV deal that they have to negotiate. They're adding USC and UCLA, so the horizon is this space, and where they're going to take it is clearly at the direction of Petitti.
We've seen it all change over the years. For years and years, the athletic director at a college would be a former coach, a beloved coach that would move on to the athletic director seat when they were retired from coaching or whatever the case may be. That role has now moved into more of a business development person, fundraiser many times in that role as athletic director. The former great ADs would move on to be a conference commissioner somewhere. And now that has moved away from having anything to do with academia. Doesn't matter if you were a school president or an athletic director, into just simply hiring someone who is a media business professional with all of these jobs. The number one trait you must possess is great leadership. And that could come in any walk of business or life to hire to lead a conference. But the other biggest part of this is being savvy when it comes to TV deals, media rights, and everything that's to come. Having an eye on the future of what's happening and being able to build a team around you that can also look at the climate and see which way the wind is blowing. That's the biggest part now of college sports, and the Big Ten is going in that direction. I think every conference, when they have a decision to make on a new commissioner, they're probably going to go in a similar direction. You look at Brett Yormark with the Big 12 and where he comes from Rock Nation. Then George Kliavkoff comes from a casino. And before that, television and different media rights packages. So this is the direction everything is headed. So this doesn't really surprise me when you look at it that way.
Any coincidence that he was with CBS?
No.
And now CBS is Big Ten football?
Not at all. And I don't think it's just because they have the rights to the Big Ten. I think that's a part of it.
The relationship aspect of that, though, is key.
I think any network experience would have been good. I think what puts it over the top with this is when your big media partner, you can go to them and they can give you a recommendation and say, hey, this guy would be really good for the job. That certainly helps land a position like that.
Chad, one of the best stories right now in sports, Tampa Bay Rays. 11-0 start. And to put into perspective where we are in the season and the start that they've had, only 6 other teams, clubs, have gotten off to the same type of start that we've seen from Tampa Bay. Only one of those went on to win the World Series that year. That was the Dodgers. They were the only ones to do it. But all that to say, we're a long way from October. But I'm appreciating what they're doing when you look at the numbers, the dominance of how they're winning games. These games are not close. They've hit 29 home runs in these 11 games, outscoring opponents by combined 83-20, and they've trailed only twice throughout this win streak to begin the season. And maybe the craziest stat, the Rays are the first team since 1884 with a run differential of more than 50 to begin. The record is 13 straight to begin a season. We've seen that twice. Both happened in the 80s. And they've got another matchup against the Red Sox, but I mean, they do not back down. And to catch them, you have to catch them on the scoreboard. It was 5-0 by the third, I believe, last night.
I just looked it up. Rays minus 125 against Boston, 6:40 Eastern time first pitch tonight. It's a national story to watch to see if they can keep winning.
Yeah.
At this point. Some other numbers. 1987, Milwaukee Brewers got off to a 13-0 start. 1982, Atlanta Braves got off to a 13-0 start. They're 2 away from that. And they're tied for the most home runs ever hit through 11 games with the 2000 Cardinals. And here's the craziest part about it. They won back-to-back games in the stretch 1-0.
Yeah.
So when you think Rays, you think crafty pitching and developing great starting pitching and being inventive with how they do bullpen rotations and having a deep bullpen. And then you've got a team that's tied for the best ever start in home runs. This team's incredible. And it's a story to follow until they drop a game. I'll be not tuning in and watching the whole game. I'll be following that score tonight to see if they can get to 12-0.
Same. 1884 to 2023, though. I mean, we're seeing something that only happens once a century. And that's the beauty of the sport, really, is you can go back and see something that's only happened once, and it was in the late 1800s for the sport itself with the run differential of more than 50 to this point.
In 1884, they were not thinking about digital rights the way the Big Ten is thinking about digital rights now.
They were reconstructing.
They were reconstructing, but a very different way. They weren't thinking about where the Major League Baseball product was going to go in the streaming wars and where people could watch online. They had other things to worry about.
Chad, the league also worried about Shohei Ohtani because he's doing something we haven't seen since Nolan Ryan. 10 starts now in a row, allowing 2 runs or less in those starts for earned runs. Phenomenal job, and on top of that, he's doing it at the plate too. But he's doing something we haven't seen since one of the legends did it.
If he drops one or the other, if he drops the hitting or the pitching, let's say that Shohei Ohtani plays till he's 45. He just continues to play for a long time, and at some point he can't do both. What does he continue doing longer? I'm guessing pitching. With the DH, though, I mean, it could be I think the hitting is less taxing,
pitching,
probably.
If he's just pitching, it's once every 5 days.
Yeah. That's why I asked the question. I don't know. I don't know what'll last longer with him, or maybe he just plays till he's 45 and does both the entire time. Everything else about this guy is completely unique. He is a total unicorn in baseball, And we haven't seen anything like it before. I don't know that we're anywhere close to seeing anything else like him in the near future. It's amazing.
No surprise. We mentioned this yesterday. Beer sales, they're being extended at parks across the country. Not all of them yet, but they're coming. All the parks will follow suit because they're losing money at the beer stand because they've sped up the game in the ballpark for the benefit of everyone sitting at home watching these games at night. They're now 30 minutes faster, and so that translates to a loss of $280,000 to maybe over $1 million in lost beer sales throughout the season, depending on the stadium and, of course, the attendance. So you've got the Brewers, the Twins, the Diamondbacks, and the Rangers. They've already extended that beer sales deadline from the 7th to the 8th inning, and we'll see that every team will eventually do this.
I love that the Brewers were one of the first to do this. Of all the teams to extend beer sales, it had to be the Milwaukee Brewers. There was also dollar hot dog night in Philly last night. I don't know if you saw this. They had a running count on the scoreboards of hot dogs sold. They were over 33,000 hot dogs sold by the third inning of this game. People were showing it was a 45 to 50-minute wait in certain spots to get dollar hot dogs. And I think they capped them at a $5 limit at a time. You could get 5 hot dogs. So there's another way to maybe increase ticket sales while not increasing money at the concession, but this is a way to get more money concessions.
The average is 40 cents to create a hot dog that includes the bun and condiments for a concession stand.
And they sell for $7 normally.
Yeah.
And now it's $1 for a dollar hot
that.
dog night.
Yeah, it's like a T-shirt at a concert.
It's crazy. The beer sales thing, I can't wait until – so Major League Baseball at some point, they're going to have some sort of press release about revenue, ratings, things that have been improved by their rules changes. Mm-hmm. If they don't, that's not a good thing for baseball. But if they come back and say, hey, games are 30 minutes less, but we're still making more in concessions, ticket sales are up, TV revenue in local markets are up, all these different things, or TV ratings are up, that's good news for rules changes sticking around for the long term. If not, maybe not. I hope it sticks because I enjoy the games moving at a faster pace right now.
Yeah, I mean, so far, complaints from fans, minimal. If they're complaining about how bad their teams are. You know, the slow start that the teams with the big payrolls are expected to, start winning, and it's been slow out of the gates for some. Chad, DeMeco Ryans, new head coach of the Houston Texans, says, well, there's not much pressure. There shouldn't be pressure on whoever's selected at number 2 overall for the Houston Texans. The quote, it's exciting for us to have the number 2 pick, but at the same time, there is no pressure where a young man is picked. Like, it's unfair to ask a guy, just because you're picked number 2 overall, you have to come in and you're the face of our franchise and you're the leader. That's unfair to the guy. I'm not going to put that type of weight on the shoulders of whoever that is if we pick. That's not what we're anticipating. That's not what we're expecting them to do. This coming from a leader in a locker room, a very respected player across the NFL during his days, and a respected coach now, even as a position coach and coordinator. But C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, they're absolutely the leader of that locker room upon putting the hat on for the number 2 overall selection for the Houston Texans on April 27th.
Maybe he tipped his hand a little bit when he said where a young man is selected in the draft. I'm thinking, that maybe he's saying, Bryce Young.
Oh, he's saying it's not going to be Hendon Hooker.
Yeah. So you mean Will Levis is out, right? Not going to be him. Obviously, he's the face of the franchise. I have no problem with what DeMeco Ryans is saying here. Everyone knows that you take quarterback number 2 overall. They are the chosen one. They're the ones that's going to lead your franchise out of the darkness and into the light. You don't need the head coach. And I don't think it matters one way or the other, personally. If you pick the right guy, they're not going to be affected by DeMeco Ryans. Even if he said with a question, he's absolutely going to be the face of the franchise, and we're going to rest a lot of hope on that guy and put a lot of trust in him. If you pick the right guy, that's not going to affect that person negatively.
Right.
But I also understand DeMeco Ryans is saying he's a rookie. He's going to come in here. He's going to earn a spot. We think highly of the player if we're drafting him second. We definitely think highly of them if we draft a quarterback second overall. That goes without saying. So I get the gist of we don't have to put any added pressure on him because the pressure is already immense for the number 2 overall pick that's coming into a rebuilding franchise and is going to be expected to start from day one for a team. We all understand that pressure. DeMeco Ryans doesn't have to say it for everyone else and paint it, not even paint it, draw it down in crayon for everyone to see.
Yeah, and picking apart the quote, look, he knows as well as every coach and player in the league, the top quality that you want, it's not like what's the IQ score and all these different intangibles. Can the dude ball? Can he play? And at the quarterback position, is he a leader? Is he going to exemplify everything we're about as an organization? You don't draft that dude number 2 if it's not that guy. That's a prerequisite for even being on the board with the opportunity to be selected. If you miss that, Chad, he's not going to be there very long. And he knows that. And I'm talking about Ryans. He's brought in, he's not going to bring some beta into the locker room with the first pick that he's going to have as a head coach. No,
but there are questions about all these guys.
Yeah, there's not a Joe Burrow-esque quality.
There's not someone, we can poke holes in everyone, except, in my opinion, for Bryce Young. He can ball out. He's got the leadership intangibles, but everything on and off the field is perfection.
Right.
I think with Bryce Young, he's the best natural thrower and has the most arm talent of anyone in this draft. He's 5'9", 175 pounds. And the moment he gets hit hard and suffers any type of injury, everyone is going to say, see, told you so. Too small to take the beating in the NFL and can't get it done. I still believe he's the best quarterback in this draft. I would take him number 1 overall. But I understand the thinking. Pete Prisco brought it up with us yesterday on the program. Hey, he's tiny. I mean, he is a slight guy. It's not just that he's short.
You're right.
He's not Russell Wilson stocky. He's a Kyler Murray even is stocky compared to Bryce Young. So I do understand the questions about his size. I don't think there's any questioning his ability as a quarterback. It's just the size that's an issue.
And not only that, Chad, the number 1, it sounds like 2 teams would love to take him number 1. Yeah. Carolina and then Houston. It sounds like Houston really wants Young. They want to go young and they want to draft Bryce Young. But C.J. Stroud, he's in that same category, right? And in the NFL, if we're going to talk about talent around them, I mean, compared to what he had at Ohio State, they're like, oh, of course you're going to pitch these layups. In the NFL, if the Texans are doing this right, they're drafting 12th. They should pair him up with one of the receivers where they know exactly the same page and the same offense and the same mindset.
Well, and look,
moving forward with the franchise.
Our next guest coming up knows a lot about C.J. Stroud and can talk about him. My knock on C.J. Stroud is he's not a guy who's going to elevate and be I'm not saying there's magicians all over the league that can just pull a miracle and a rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah.
Bryce Young may be one of those guys. He's a guy who's going to win you a couple of games on moxie, on ability to escape pressure and make things happen randomly over the course of a game and make the huge play that alters the game entirely.
Not running all that much.
C.J. Stroud just is – he's a guy who's very accurate, can throw the ball really well. He's got good anticipation when he sees the play pre-snap. He's not some miracle worker when things break down. If he's on time and on script and everything is right and he's got good teammates around him, he could have an MVP season in the NFL. He could be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's not a guy who individually, though, to me, is going to elevate a franchise beyond what they have around them. Bryce Young may be able to do that. He may be that type of special player. He may have that sort of innate ability that we saw with Joe Burrow.
When I think of Bryce Young, I think of the game this past season in Knoxville and that performance that he had. It was a loss, but the performance, I mean, it was his best game.
He had an answer to everything.
And Stroud in the college football playoff had that same type of vibe and play.
In a loss, yeah.
In a loss. Yeah, but I mean, against Georgia, I mean, that was a great performance. The recency bias, but that's what I think about when I think of C.J. Stroud currently and what he could be and the ceiling for the guy. Coming up, Bobby Carpenter joins us. We'll discuss the Ohio State prospects. We'll also chat about the new commissioner in the Big Ten. What's on the horizon? With the way the deck is stacked, Petitti's coming in to take them to a different level. But how would we describe that? Bobby Carpenter next on Hot Mic.
Controversial opinion.
I think girls with hairy armpits should be eradicated from the face of this earth.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
Hottest take is that In-N-Out is overrated.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because their french fries taste like cardboard and they get soggy too quick if you get them animal style, and their burgers are just like always dry. So it's gross.
Hot dog is not a sandwich
Why not?
because it's not two separate pieces of bread.
What's your hottest take?
Normalize blacking out.
ChatGPT is going to take over the world.
Hate Duke University. I hope they never win a game in the history of life. I hate everything about them. That's my take.
Why is that your hot take? Why do you feel so strongly about that?
Air of arrogance amongst people I'm friends with, and I want to punch them in the face often.
I believe there shouldn't be any weight classes in fighting, UFC, boxing, just let the best fighter fight.
I'm a Packers fan. I think it'd be great if Aaron Rodgers leaves. It'd be really funny if he demanded all this stuff from the Jets and then stayed.
LeBron James is not the go to basketball.
My hot take is that the University of Tennessee is hot trash, and so is the SEC. Go Big Ten.
I hate when people slow down when it's a green light and they think it's going to turn yellow, so they slow down anticipating that it's going to turn like red.
People do that?
Yeah, at least in Canada.
He's from Canada. I asked people from Canada for their hot takes. They don't have any. They don't have any.
I'm not a controversial person. To each their own, I guess.
Hot takes from Canada.
Snapchat is cringy. Do not ask for my Snapchat if you are over 18 years old.
I think a celebrity that got canceled and shouldn't have is Hayley Williams from Paramore, simply because she said a derogatory term in her song Misery Business from like 15 years ago. 15 years later, they decide she's a criminal? I don't know about that.
I think the Beatles are overrated.
I'm here in Nashville. My hot take is that country music sucks.
Taylor Swift is overrated.
Swift is better country, for sure.
Cowboy boots aren't cool.
We are far from the most racist country in the world. I'm so ready for the new president.
Here we go.
Joe Biden is a terrible president. Trump 2024.
Got primary complaint coming up in about 20 minutes or so. Hot mic rolls on across the OutKick network. Bobby Carpenter about to join us momentarily. We'll dive into the new Big Ten commissioner and get his thoughts on what Tony Petitti is tasked with now, because he picks up where Kevin Warren left off. And Chad, while he didn't handle the COVID season great, man, he has set them up for a big cash flow moving forward.
It's tough to argue with the contract that he just signed. I mean, there are haves and have-nots in college sports, and the haves are in two categories, Big Ten and SEC. And then there's everyone else, and Kevin Warren was 50% of the haves. It's him and Greg Sankey. They were controlling college sports, and now a new guy gets to help control college sports and the future of it with a new Big Ten commissioner.
Congrats on your win last night with the bets for NBA.
Thank you very much. My NBA viewing continues for another night. So congrats to the NBA. They kept my attention for one night.
Well,
and because I won my bets, or should I say the NBA players won my bets last night, then I'll go back again tonight and watch again.
Well, let me ask from this perspective. Are you watching because it's the one-game postseason for them, where it sets up the seed? Or would you be watching a game one of an early series the same way?
Probably about the same. I mean, I'm only going to bet on the NBA when the playoffs get here.
Yeah.
So it just happened to be the play-in tournament was the first playoff game that was taking place, so I bet on it. So it's twofold.
And we did it
I
in
watched
jest,
because
really.
I bet on it, and I watched simply because it's playoffs.
Hawks and Lakers, they win their respective play-in games, so they advance to set up where we're headed with all this. The Warriors are an interesting storyline too, Chad, because they're the 6th seed. They were 29-29 at the All-Star break, and they've clawed their way back in. They're healthy, and they're now taking on a Kings franchise. The Sacramento Kings are the 3 seed. They're the underdog. The Warriors have been awful on the road all season, due in part to the health status of their roster. But point being, this is a Kings franchise that hasn't. They have just snapped a 16-year skid for the postseason, and they're facing the Warriors as a reward.
In sports.
They're facing the Golden State Warriors as the reward, who just so happened to slot in the 6th spot to take on the Kings. It's been a long time since we've seen the Kings in the postseason. It's been a while since Chris Webber and Mike Bibby and Vlade Divac are in that locker room.
It also makes me a little bit mad. Jimmy Butler's comments, the Heat go from number 1 seed in the East to play-in game, and everyone is just so dismissive about the regular season.
Yeah.
It's just the point now where we don't care. We're in the playoffs. It's all that matters. I mean, you can say it's a new season and we have new hope now while also acknowledging, hey, that regular season was a disappointment for us. A lot of the Warriors players are singing a different tune than Steve Kerr, too. It's we've won multiple rings. We know how to do this. We're in the dance now. It's all that matters. Doesn't matter that we're going on the road first or that we're the 6th seed. Thinking if you're such a champion, you could be a champion in the regular season as well. You don't have to mail it in and just get in however you want to get in and then say, well, now the season starts. So much goes towards devaluing all regular season in the NBA that it makes me mad. Even the post-regular season, pre-playoff talk, I'm thinking, if I'm a fan and why am I invested in the regular season if these guys don't even care?
Well, and that's something that they have to figure out. And they're trying to figure that out with the new CBA that was just signed, the extension of the collective bargaining agreement between the NBA Players Association and the league. But so one of the things is, like, when it comes to, let's see, MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved, Rookie of the Year, All NBA team, all of those things that factor into accolades, rewards, bonuses. A player must appear in at least 65 of the 82 regular season games in order to even qualify to win that. So 65 games in a regular season of the 82 doesn't sound like it should be hard to handle, but, I mean, appear in sounds a lot like we saw with Luka Doncic and what we saw from the Mavs, who bowed out, waved the white flag, sat players, announced to the league and the fan bases they were going to do it. And then with Luka Doncic, they played him for a quarter and then sat him too. This is the world we're living in, where the analytics and the organizations are looking at the numbers and saying, hey, we need to rest these guys. If it really comes down to load management, it needs to be about the length of the season. If that's the issue, then we don't need 82 games. And if it's not the issue, then get back to what it was, which was the star players are on the court when healthy for their team. That's what they've gotten away from. It's a individual player-led league where in its heyday it was a individual player-led league that cared about the team itself. And to your point, I think the care about the team aspect happens right now for many right now when it comes to truly going all out for the championship. Because if you don't make the postseason, they're done. And in some cases, the owner doesn't even want you to make the postseason. Mark Cuban told his fan base that.
You also had the situation where, Draymond Green is one of the players I'm talking about, who said we won an NBA record amount of games one year and lost in Game 7 of the finals, and no one remembers that season because we didn't win it all that year. So it doesn't really matter what happens in the regular season. And I can't buy that, because these are the best players in the world. They also are supposed to be the best competitors and biggest competitors in the world. And you can't tell me that an 82-game regular season is just a throwaway if you can get in the top 8 and give yourself a chance. I'm not going to buy that. I think that is a very dismissive way of almost having a defense mechanism to account for regular season failure, to just say, well, it doesn't matter. It can matter, and it can matter less now that it's over and you're in the playoffs. Both things can be true. So there's nothing wrong with coming into it and saying, up and down season, disappointing. If you're the Heat, Jimmy Butler, as an example, went from a number 1 seed to barely in the play-in. Disappointing regular season got us here, but hey, we're here. Now's a chance to turn everything around and go on a run and make up for a largely disappointing regular season. But everyone's so afraid just to admit that it was disappointing. Just say it. Everyone saw it. You don't have to hide from it. Just come out and say, we were bad. The Warriors, we're terrible on the road. Terrible. That's a part of what this team is. We're going to have to do better in the playoffs if we're going to go on a run the way we think we should. I don't understand why players are so reluctant to admit that. It's like everyone has their defenses up so much now because of what they read on social media or what they think shows like ours are saying about their league, that they can't admit any fault. And that bothers me. If you admit more fault and admit what you need to do moving forward, more people will have respect for you for doing such instead of where we are now.
Chad, another interesting aspect of the CBA for the NBA we haven't touched on, players can now, they are allowed to invest in NBA and WNBA teams. That's something we have not seen. And I can't help but think of LeBron James, because he's in a different stratosphere as a billionaire compared to what these other players, they're making great money, but they're not making ownership stake money for the NBA, I should say. Because if you've got a 1% stake in the Phoenix Suns, you need $40 to $80 million to purchase a 1% stake based on their recent sale of $4 billion. So there's only a small handful of players that'll have that opportunity. But in the WNBA, I think we could see more of that. And I couldn't help but think about LeBron James in Vegas whenever I saw this was included in the CBA.
Yeah,
and Bronny James coming to the league, and he is out front saying, "I want that team." He can be the next MJ of ownership, and it sounds like Jordan's trying to sell the Hornets, but he can be in that, he can be on that business shelf. But do we first see him buy into a stake of the franchise and then finish off things with his son before he retires?
I completely understand LeBron's motivation if he wants to. I mean, he stated that a team in Las Vegas would interest him, right?
No, he put his flag down and said, "I want."
Yeah, he wants it.
Yeah.
I'm saying he stated, "This is my intention, what I want to do." When he formed the Big Three in Miami and that happened, there was blowback from everyone, especially the old guard in the NBA, Charles Barkley included, saying you wanted to beat the hell out of your rival, not join them, and go win championships. That's the way it was. Even though later in his career, Barkley kind of did the same in Houston, right? Didn't work, though, for him. But if this happens, if LeBron James can pull off some sort of switcheroo where he plays with his son and gets ownership stake in Vegas, it feels very WWE sports entertainment to me. Like the NBA, to me, starts to turn more and more to, are we just scripting this now?
Well,
is Vince McMahon behind the scenes and doing this to make sure everything happens this way?
I'm saying I think he finishes his career playing with his son. I do. I don't know if it's in Vegas because I don't know if it happens that fast. It could. But I do think that we could see Bronny James playing for a LeBron James-owned team. And in this case, LeBron James can buy in a percentage stake of the Lakers if he wanted to, currently.
It feels like the plot to like a Disney movie that would never happen.
And what I haven't seen...
former player gets stake in team and then brings on son to star for the team. It just, again, I totally understand why LeBron James would want to do this. And if he can pull it off, more power to the guy. It just feels fake to me. It feels weird. It doesn't feel like reality. But if it is reality for LeBron James, kudos to LeBron James.
And that he's not back. I mean, the numbers he still puts up, everyone points to how long he's been in the league. But, man, he continues to dominate and lead teams. Just when you think he's trying to look at when and project when he's going to be done, it may not be when we all think it is. You know, we're headed down this next Brady path.
I'm watching overtime last night with Lakers and T-Wolves, and he gets a – by the way, the whole no walking thing, I haven't watched a lot of NBA this year, has gotten far worse. The Timberwolves had a big steal, and Anthony Edwards caught a pass from Conley, middle of the lane, caught it, jumped like a bunny hop twice before putting a dribble down, never even dribbled, and then passed it out to the corner at one point. I'm thinking, we're just not dribbling now? But LeBron James got a rebound at one point, tucked it like a football, and took off down the court. And while he traveled, and they didn't call it, it was quite impressive to see how fast. Yeah, I mean, again, it's all relative, right?
I know.
What is traveling in the NBA? He got it, tucked it, took 2 steps, then dribbled, but he was fast out of the gates. And I'm watching that thinking, this guy is getting up there. Think of the minutes he's played over the course of his career.
Yeah.
And it looked for a split second like 2007 LeBron James.
In Cleveland.
Leading Cleveland with no one around him, with Anderson Varejao as his Robin to his Batman, with no one around him, no supporting cast, leading that team to the NBA Finals. That's what it looked like for a second. And you can't help but admire the guy's greatness as a player. It's unbelievable.
What I haven't seen with the details of the CBA, because they've tried to meet the wealthy owners that don't want to spend above the luxury tax. They've tried to meet those guys with the owners that do want to spend above the luxury tax with different tiers of the tax. If you go above a certain threshold, you can only offer veterans a certain amount of money. You can't offer the max contract. And I know Draymond was upset about that. But what I don't know, Chad, is can you, as a part of a contract, give a player 0.5% ownership in this? I don't know. You can't do that in any league, any major league we're talking about, with Major League Baseball, with NFL for sure.
But you bring up a great point. If any one league would be where it's possible,
they've just opened the door.
It would be the NBA. That would make it happen because the NBA and MLB players have a ton of control and have very strong unions, and they get a lot of what they want. So I can buy it moving forward.
Coming up, primary complaints. It's next on Hot Mic. Recently retiring. Your locker was very close to Tom's locker, wasn't it?
Right next to 12, yeah.
What was that like?
Man, it was cool, man. He a funny dude, man. He's a nice guy. Joke with him every day. You know, he's a good dude, man. He's probably one of the only dudes that I know that walk around in a bathrobe in the locker room, bro. So
You go up against him in practice all the time. Could you see that big jump coming from Daniel Jones going into this season?
Man, when I first played against Daniel, you know, coming in last year and seeing him work, man, I knew, you know, the talent that he had. It was just one of those things where, you know, you always hear the saying, God's timing is always right. It was just one of those moments where you knew eventually it was going to click and everything was going to work out, not just for him, but for us as a team. And I'm just so happy for him.
Which video game are you most proud of making the cover for?
Oh, definitely Madden, yeah. Like I remember I come from a big family. My mom had 6 sisters and 1 brother, and a lot of cousins, 30-some cousins, and you know. And I remember one of the younger ones was like, "Man, you're on Madden. You're really good." And I was like, "Cuz, like, I was the high school #1 player in the country.
Yeah.
I broke every record at Alabama, All-American. I get the pros. I'd won the MVP already. You know?
Yeah.
Been to the Super Bowl, won the MVP. He's like, now because of Madden, now you're cool. I was like, oh, okay.
You had done a few things.
Yeah. You know, now I'm good. Okay, all right. Well, that's how it works in y'all's minds.
And I remember when I first started working in the morning news. Shout out to Drew Kaliski, super producer for NFL Today. He was just talking about season. How you feeling? You know, you ready to go? Are you excited? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, awkwardly hesitating to ask me a question. And I'm like, what's up, man? Speak your piece. And he's like, do you know what's going on in the NFL? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, do you know who plays for what teams and who's been traded where? I'm like, yeah, bro, what do you think? I'm living under a rock? And this is my job. I'm studying just like anything else.
Hot Mic rolls on. You can join us each and every day. 3 o'clock Eastern is our start time, 3 to 6 each afternoon. Join us at OutKick.com and on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel there. We'll hit the NBA playoff headlines. We've got plenty to discuss in the world of golf with Colt Knost, who will join us in hour number 2. That's coming up in about 35 minutes or so. And Chad, we welcome everyone to join us in the chat on YouTube.
Join me over there. I am conversing daily inside the chat. It's been very active lately. So hit us up on YouTube. I'll try to get back to as many questions people ask as possible. And I hope some people in the chat will at least somewhat understand my primary complaint that's coming up.
Yeah, and each and every Wednesday at this time, we do exactly that. It is time for primary complaint.
It's time to air our top grievance of the week.
You can complain all you want.
My job is so unfulfilling. Don't run away from your feelings.
It's time for Hot Mic's primary complaint.
Guys, my primary complaint this week, well, I'm not complaining about this. It did take way too long. It's been over, but now it's officially not a national emergency any longer. COVID officially ended, signed by our president yesterday, but that was yesterday, April 11th. But on March 18th, Novak Djokovic could not play in the Miami Open. And currently, non-vaccinated, non-Americans cannot enter the country as of right now. In this madness, allow him to play. It is time to even stop thinking about giving exemptions and just open it up like we've all been doing anyway. That's my primary complaint.
Weird how suddenly this isn't being xenophobic and hateful when you're blocking people from other countries that come in that don't get a vaccination. Crazy how that works and how it's covered. Look, I'm not going to name the name of this place because I still hold out hope that one day, maybe one day, we can have a fast food place sponsor this show or anything sponsor this show. So I will not out the company I'm talking about right now. But I will just say that I recently had some chicken tenders from a place known for chicken tenders. And they're also known for a great sauce. And the only thing recognizable about this meal that I had was the sauce. Because the chicken tenders didn't look, didn't feel, didn't taste like any of the chicken tenders I've ever had from this well-known chicken tender place. They were about not even half the size, maybe a quarter the size of what the chicken tenders looked like when I started frequenting this place for their chicken tenders. Fast food, if anything, needs to be consistent and predictable. I'm not going because it's going to make me feel better or give me a health kick. I'm going because the food tastes good and I'm familiar with the taste. And if I get a craving for it after coaching softball one night and I want to take my daughter through the drive-thru there, it's because I want to go back to that familiar place where I know exactly what I'm going to get. And for whatever reason, even fast food in America has become wildly inconsistent. And I can't expect what I'm going to get every time because every time it's different. And I hate this. Please change it. Go back to bigger tenders. At least give me the same thing every time so I get that sweet release of knowing what I'm going to consume. Please and thank you. That is my primary complaint.
Guys, my primary complaint revolves around sending physical mail. I feel like we've evolved as a society to where we shouldn't have to deal with this anymore. It's like, you got email, that works just fine. I mean, there's so much that it takes to, you got to get the envelope, you got to get the document, the paper. Sometimes you even have to physically write stuff out, like if you're thinking like a letter. We've just gotten to the point to where we can just get past this. When it comes to stamps, I don't know, is it 20 cents, $20? Where do you even get stamps? I know you can stand in line at the post office. Can you even order those online? And I know a lot of people are thinking like, this guy should know this, but I guarantee you 65% of millennials listening to this and probably 100% of Gen Z's like, this guy's spot on right now. I even forgot you could just like put the mail in your own mailbox and put the flag up. Like, I mean, it's just, we've gotten to that point to where we've just pretty much phased this out of normal everyday life.
I feel like we're having deja vu that we've talked about stamps before in primary complaint. Or am I making that up?
Over the 12 years you and I have done a show,
I'm
yes.
sure we've talked about stamps before, but I feel like we've talked about stamps in this studio also. Maybe I had a dream about discussing stamps.
You can get stamps just at a grocery, at any store. Just ask them. They lift up the register and they're right there. They treat them like gold blocks.
I'm never looking for a package to come in. Yet every day I come home, my wife has some package being delivered for one of the kids or for herself.
In the mail or like
Amazon deliveries, but also in the mail. Like she's looking for stuff in the mail from her family or somewhere else. I can't tell you the last time I checked a mailbox other than because I was told or asked to check the mailbox for something coming in. I never randomly go and look in my mailbox. Family will be out of town. I don't look in the mailbox. It'll be overflowing because I don't even think to look in the mailbox
But
anymore.
the mail carriers that I see or pass or I'm stuck behind, they are chock full.
They're
of
busy.
Mail.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's just junk, like spam, you know?
But it's keeping the mail business alive,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, U.S. Mail is around because of coupons being
Chad,
sent to people
I'm
that
not
didn't
sure,
ask for them.
I know you ordered chicken tenders. I'm not sure you had chicken tenders. If you say they didn't taste like chicken tenders.
Well, again, not going to name the name of the place, but these tenders come in 3, 5, or 7 on the meal. And I usually would go with 5. And I immediately got it. And I'm like, I should have gone with 7 because these 5 equaled about 2 of the original chicken tenders that this place once served. The sauce stays the same when you get the sauce packet that I enjoy from this chicken tender place that I'm not going to name. But everything else was different. The fries, I guess, were sort of similar. But I remember reading Tony Dungy's book at one point, and he talked about coaching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he equated it to, I will use the name of this place because I'm not going to trash it. He equated it to his kids loving McDonald's and said that his kids love McDonald's because whether you're in Tampa, Florida, or Minneapolis, Minnesota, if you go through a drive-thru at McDonald's, you can expect consistency. You know what you're going to get. It all tastes the same. It is the same. And he talked about his team needing to be consistent, that when you play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the time, they need to know what they're going to get in terms of effort and how the team's going to play. And that analogy always stuck with me, and I thought that is the comforting thing about fast food is at least you go to a place in one city or another on the interstate somewhere, you get off the exit and go there, you typically know what to expect until 2023, where this isn't the only place. I feel like I go to different ones, and it can be completely different. And I hate that.
Well, that and then, like, you know, some places had, I feel like, had good fries, and they just changed them.
Yeah, no,
You know,
that's true.
They change it
but
up.
that's a business decision to change the recipe or do whatever they're doing for that reason.
But, like, what fast food item would you say is just so consistent that it's never changing? The burger? Like a burger's...
I would say maybe, but places have changed their fries.
Tots? I'm trying to think
I think of like McDonald's fries as being consistent over the years.
Yeah, that's what you come to expect.
Right.
And then meanwhile, they're cutting the tender in half and calling it 2.
Well, the tender industry is really taking a hit. Now, I've noticed this over the years. Any place, it's really hard to find like the full tender you would get back in the day. Back in our childhood, Hutton,
taking such a
if
hit
you
that
got
the
chicken tenders, they're huge. And now
You're right.
it's minuscule compared to what they once were. But when you get a tiny tender, it changes the entire experience and taste.
It's a nugget.
Yeah, the tender taste there, it's tougher. Like a thick, juicy tender tastes better than these small, burnt, crisp ones that they're handing you now. It's terrible.
I know people are actually losing money if they're selling wings. So, like, if you go to a wing spot, they'll actually try to push you to other things on the menu.
Wow.
What is Hutton, the chicken business? Who knew?
Maybe that's why they do was shining a flashlight at his neighbor's chickens.
Yeah. He's causing the global shortage. That's leading to these small tenders.
We found out where they went.
Chinese men scaring chickens to death. It's affecting my experience of eating
Headlines,
tenders.
including the guy we need in the NBA, but we really don't want. That's next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll them, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper-rational. They looked at the data, and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of the Southern Legend.
Just like that, the second hour here, Hot Mic rolls on. Colt Knost will be with us, CBS golf analyst, host of the Subpar podcast. He was in Augusta. Chat with him coming up in 20 minutes. Mike Gunzelman, Guns from OutKick, he will be with us as well in hour number 3 later this afternoon. Chad, we've hit a variety of topics throughout the day. The Big Ten has a new commissioner in Tony Petitti, former CBS TV exec, former exec with Major League Baseball. He was there, was brought in initially by MLB from CBS to launch MLB Network, MLB TV, transpired out of that. And then also he took over for Rob Manfred. Whenever Manfred became the commissioner in 2015, he took over Manfred's position of COO. The financial background, but also you've got the business background of all things network, digital, and the relationships necessary where the Big Ten is already prospering, but they're going to continue to flourish.
Is MLB Network a success?
I think MLB Network is far better than NFL Network.
I think quality-wise, it's very good. I don't know if it's a financial success. I don't know what the viewership's like. I don't know their business and how much money they make. I'm with you. I enjoy a Friday night, after the games are over, turning into that show on MLB Network, just watching highlights where they break into games live.
Yeah.
A Saturday morning, that's a fun show to watch where it's the night before, and it gives you a quick 2-minute highlight of every game. I think the stuff they do on MLB Network is really good from a quality standpoint. I don't know how well the business does. I do know the business of MLB TV has been really good digitally. So that's encouraging for the future of the Big Ten. It just makes a lot of sense because everything with the business is headed toward either linear television, and it's not headed that way. It's been that way for a while with linear TV. But television broadcast rights being very lucrative for conferences mixed with digital streaming rights now. And this is a hire that blends the two from both the TV side and digital side of it and the league side leading digital and television partnerships. So all in all, I think a really good hire for the Big Ten. Coming off a very successful tenure from Kevin Warren. He completely botched the COVID situation, and he had to come walking back with his tail between his legs and his head tucked low and admit that he was wrong by restarting the season after canceling it.
And presidents and ADs didn't like it.
But other than that, he got them in a very good spot with his latest TV deal.
Yeah.
That was his gift to the conference on his
Balls
way
on
out.
the tee, for sure. And he's now the president of the Chicago Bears. In this entire process, I'm surprised of how quiet the Big Ten kept this search.
Me too.
For months. You just don't see that. And Jim Phillips, that was the biggest sign that we had, was that he was staying with the ACC on a 3-year extension. That was announced yesterday. And less than 24 hours later, the news comes down that Petitti's the new commissioner of the Big Ten.
I wonder if we're going to hear just months from now, year from now, surprise names that talk to the Big Ten about the opening.
Maybe, but also
because it was so quiet, we didn't even hear about a lot of people talking with them.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's going to be some shocks about, I heard from them about that job, or I interviewed with them or talked to them, and maybe some names that we know that we wouldn't expect to be in the mix.
It was so quiet that when Phillips announced that he was staying with the ACC on an extension, no one even said, oh, well, he must have been told he's not getting the Big Ten job. It wasn't assumed. Phillips should have been in the running this go around because he was the runner-up to Kevin Warren, but it wasn't assumed that that was his priority or that the talks were ongoing. The talks were about Clemson and Florida State and the programs that want more of the TV distribution and the money distribution from the grant of rights deal. Chad, you were watching the TV last night when you got home from the game, your game, Evie's game.
Yep.
And you watched the NBA playoffs, and you saw quite the finish.
Quite the finish for LeBron James and the Lakers. And let me say, it is LeBron James and the Lakers. And let me also say, it is LeBron James and the NBA. The NBA is his sidecar. He's the little dude riding in the sidecar on the motorcycle with LeBron James going full speed ahead, driving that motorcycle. As much as the PGA Tour, I think for a while, needed Tiger Woods for TV ratings, that's changed now that no one expects much from Tiger post-auto accident.
Mm-hmm.
As much as that tour needed Tiger Woods and his cachet and his name recognition, if you love or hate LeBron James, doesn't matter. The NBA needs that guy. He is such a superstar, and he carries that league in a lot of ways. The NBA needed the Lakers to win that game. They need them to go on a playoff push. That is going to help everyone in that league. LeBron James, I'm looking right now, the release a couple hours ago from this past season. Top 15 jersey sales, NBA. Number 1, LeBron James. Number 2, Steph Curry. 3, Jason Tatum. 4, Giannis. 5, Luka Doncic. Most viewed players on social media this season. LeBron James, 1.3 billion followers. Steph Curry, second, with 881 million. Luka Doncic, third, 736 million. Social media, jersey sales, talk, controversy with some of the things he says and does. All of these things lead, and his great play. He's the all-time leading scorer in the NBA. His great play, his celebrity status, his following, his idea of himself as a social pioneer and a social justice pioneer, whether people agree with that or not with LeBron James, all of these things, you put that in the stew and you stir it up, and it shows me a guy that the NBA needs badly for interest. And if they get put out early, that's bad news for the NBA. That's a league that needs LeBron James bad. Love him or hate him. And a lot of sports fans hate LeBron James. Doesn't matter. That league needs him badly. If he goes out, interest in the playoffs go down big time.
Well, just think about what the league as a whole, the superstars that truly churn the interest. LeBron, Steph, Durant, right?
Yeah.
And the age of those players. LeBron's 38. Steph's 35 now. It's hard to believe. 35. And Durant is 34. But when you look at the young superstars, they're still overshadowed by those three in large part. Giannis, of course, is in that conversation. He's 28 or 29, I believe. But Luka and Zion, you've got Jason Tatum and Trae Young, who's apparently going to be traded. But then there's Ja Morant. And that's why everything going on off the court with Ja Morant is so important. Not just with his own life and getting it right, but from a league standpoint.
He's young.
He is dominant. I mean, last year he's getting discussion about MVP for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, he's 4th in NBA social media following, Ja Morant.
Yeah, so I mean,
he's 8th in jersey sales.
The star power of the league remains those older players. But I don't look at them as aging out because the league treats them like they're 24.
I mean, on this list of top 15 jersey sales, guys that I would say are young players in the NBA, the only ones, Luka, Devin Booker, Ja Morant, LaMelo Ball is 11th on this list. Jordan Poole is 15th of the Warriors. That's it.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it is brand names that have been around for a long time. Damian Lillard, Joel Embiid, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Giannis. I mean, it's strangely not a young man's game in the NBA, right? Based on what you would think of that league, not necessarily a young man's game. And it goes back to my initial point that for interest, I'm watching that game and I'm thinking I'm not nearly as into this if LeBron James isn't playing for the Lakers in this game.
Yeah.
Not nearly as into it. And that's whether you root for LeBron James or root against him. And the good news for LeBron James in the NBA is you fall into one of those categories. He's a divisive guy. He's not someone that you are impartial with or that you go in thinking
you love or you love to hate.
I don't really care. Yeah, you've got an opinion on LeBron James. That's good for the league. That's good for anyone to have an opinion on them one way or the other and not be indifferent,
Chad,
about them. That's good news for the league, and as long as he's around, I think it's good news for them.
You know who else is loved or probably hated overall? Dylan Brooks.
Yeah.
And the chirping about LeBron and the Lakers and the Grizzlies, the Grizzlies' most biggest antagonizer, saying, "Yeah, we'd love to knock LeBron out of the postseason." That's great for the NBA. Here we go again. The storyline's there. The series there starts on Sunday.
I think that this series has a lot of promise because of Ja Morant coming back with all of his issues, because Dylan Brooks is not going to stop running his mouth.
Yeah.
And then LeBron and the Lakers and Anthony Davis and everything else they bring to the table. This is great. Dylan Brooks, to me, is Draymond Green, right? It's just a different iteration of Draymond Green. No one liked Draymond Green the way he talks. They still don't like it. A lot of people don't like it. Some people love him. Most hate him for how honest he is in what he says.
Well,
and how at times it sounds like he's being a hypocrite. And I think Dylan Brooks is the exact same way, which isn't bad for interest in the league.
But here's where it ties back into Ja Morant and eyeballs on Memphis. It's Memphis and L.A. The winner gets Sacramento or Golden State. So we could have Memphis against Golden State in a series.
Or LeBron against Golden State.
But the back and forth talk all year between the Grizzlies and the Warriors, that's what I want.
Yeah.
That is where the eyeballs will be.
I'll watch. I'll watch that series for sure. I'm going to watch. I'm interested in Grizzlies-Lakers. In part, for the first thing I said, because LeBron, but also because Dylan Brooks just won't shut up. And I'm here to see what else he's going to say.
And it's odd to me, and maybe I'm just not seeing it, the forest for the trees thing, but Denver, they have the most pressure as the 1 seed. They've got the star power. They have the guys healthy, everybody back. Practice. I mean, this is their year that they've built up for. They've got the 1 seed. Meanwhile, we're talking Lakers as a 7 seed, Warriors as a 6, and potentially the Grizzlies and Warriors, or Grizzlies. I'm hoping it's not the Kings personally, but we'll see. Or even Lakers, Warriors. It's still going through the superstars. And meanwhile, Denver is going through Phoenix or the Clippers if they advance past Minnesota.
I think a ton of interest in a, let's say, Denver, Memphis, Western Conference Finals would be great for the league because of what you're trying to pitch about what's next in the league. But LeBron James is going to sell in these playoffs. That will sizzle whoever he's going up against. And the Warriors also, I think, will help.
The franchises in the Western Conference trying to win the championship versus the teams that win championships, plural. But you've got the top 5 seeds: Denver, Memphis, Sacramento, Phoenix, Clippers. I mean, plenty of storylines there, but can the NBA build those storylines?
What I want to see, the number 1 seeds meet in the finals and one of them win it all. Because if a 6 seed wins it, it further devalues the regular season. Because then the Warriors and everyone's right. Doesn't matter. Sit your guys. Sit them out whenever you want. Screw the fans who showed up to watch you. Just get in and go win. Doesn't matter home or away. Go on the road and win these series as 6 seed. Go to the finals, win a championship. That's all anyone remembers. That's why I want the teams that dominated the regular season to dominate the playoffs also.
They are in Atlanta. It's odd timing where the story comes out, but Atlanta advances, and then the news comes out that Trae Young is being shopped. Now, he had a run-in with Nate McMillan earlier in the year. McMillan's no longer their head coach, and it sounds like
he got benched.
Sounds like Young is the next one out the door, and he's on this list of young star power, and we could be looking at a rebuild in Atlanta, even though they're in the postseason. To your point about postseason play and how we view the regular season.
I just don't understand why, if you're the Atlanta Hawks and you've got a star, why do you want to get rid of the star?
That you drafted.
You also fired the coach that he was into it with. That sucked. Make me interested in Atlanta Hawks basketball. Oh, I'll tell you what would make me not interested. Trade Trae Young away for draft picks. That's a surefire way to make me care even less about the Atlanta Hawks, which I honestly didn't think was possible. Until just now.
What the responses you had was, well, maybe the report's not true. The report could also just not be true.
Was it Shaq that said, I'm not here to learn the roster of the Sacramento Kings? Remember that? He's like an NBA expert, but he said, I just don't care. He didn't know like a star, a really good role player in the league. Who was it? It was the Raptors. It was the player from Gonzaga. Or no, that was the Wizards. It was Hachimura. Oh. He didn't even know who it was. And they were making fun of him, and he's like, I'm not here to learn the Wizards.
They're not going to be talking about.
Let me say that everyone else in America is saying, I'm not here to learn the Trae Young-less Atlanta Hawks. That's pretty much how everyone will feel if they trade him away.
Or, they're not.
Rui Hachimura was the player that was.
They're not learning 6 of the 8 seeds right now, Chad, in the Western Conference.
Which I love the honesty from Shaq. That here is inside the NBA analyst saying, yeah, I'm not here to study the Washington Wizards roster.
Same.
I'm not looking at their depth right now.
Colt Knost is coming up. We switch gears. We recap Augusta from a man that walked the course, was a part of the CBS sports coverage of the Masters, and plenty of behind-the-scenes talk and stories coming from one of the best podcasts out there, the Subpar Podcast host. Colt Knost with us next on Hot Mic.
Controversial opinion.
I think girls with hairy armpits should be eradicated from the face of this earth.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
Hottest take is that In-N-Out is overrated.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because their french fries taste like cardboard and they get soggy too quick if you get them animal style, and their burgers are just like always dry. So it's gross.
Hot dog is not a sandwich
Why not?
because it's not two separate pieces of bread.
What's your hottest take?
Normalize blacking out.
ChatGPT is going to take over the world.
Hate Duke University. I hope they never win a game in the history of life. I hate everything about them. That's my take.
Why is that your hot take? Why do you feel so strongly about that?
Air of arrogance amongst people I'm friends with, and I want to punch them in the face often.
I believe there shouldn't be any weight classes in fighting, UFC, boxing, just let the best fighter fight.
I'm a Packers fan. Think it'd be great if Aaron Rodgers leaves. It'd be really funny if he demanded all this stuff from the Jets and then stayed. LeBron James is not the go to basketball.
My hot take is that the University of Tennessee is hot trash, and so is the SEC. Go Big Ten.
I hate when people slow down when it's a green light and they think it's going to turn yellow, so they slow down anticipating that it's going to turn like red.
People do that?
Yeah, at least in Canada.
He's from Canada. I asked people from Canada for their hot takes. They don't have any. They don't have any.
I'm not a controversial person. To each their own, I guess.
Hot takes from Canada.
Snapchat is cringy. Do not ask for my Snapchat if you are over 18 years old.
I think a celebrity that got canceled and shouldn't have is Hayley Williams from Paramore, simply because she said a derogatory term in her song Misery Business from like 15 years ago. 15 years later, they decide she's a criminal? I don't know about that.
I think the Beatles are overrated.
I'm here in Nashville. My hot take is that country music sucks.
Taylor Swift is overrated.
Swift is better country, for sure.
Cowboy boots aren't cool.
We are far from the most racist country in the world.
I'm so ready for the new president.
Here we go. Joe Biden is a terrible president. Trump 2024.
Hot mic rolls on. Chad, this was predictable, I feel like. Jeff Bezos doesn't plan on making a bid for the Washington Commanders. That coming from Mike Florio.
Sorry, Danny. You're going to have to stick with the $6 billion offer that you already got. Tough news for you, I know. Really bad break for Dan Snyder.
I mean, he's not going to be – I didn't think he was going to sell it to him anyway, but he's not going to be trolled is what this sounds like. And right now there is one offer on the table from Josh Harris.
Your theory is the one I believe, and that is he's holding out for the Seattle Seahawks. If he's going to own an NFL team, it's not going to be Dan Snyder's team. His base is in Seattle. It would make a lot more sense. I understand he owns the Washington Post also, but I feel like it's going to be the Seahawks.
Colt Knost with us, Subpar Podcast, CBS Sports.
Not a subpar guest, though.
No.
Not
Absolutely
for us.
not.
Does not do subpar work either.
Colt, good to see you, man. Hope things are well.
Hey, guys. Great to see you. Thanks for having me on again. Obviously, things are great. Busy week last week, but ready to get going here in Hilton Head again this week.
Best behind-the-scenes chat, story, whatever it might be from the Masters last weekend.
Oh, boy. There was a lot. It was a very fun week. Not sure if y'all have heard of T-Bones there in Augusta, Georgia. Very popular hangout spot. But if you came by there on the weekend, you could have caught me and Smiley Kaufman DJing there and entertaining the people and having a good time. So that was a pretty fun one if you had a chance to come by T-Bones.
So we always talk about the amazing week for Jim Nantz. You know, this was his last Final Four, but he goes Final Four for CBS and then goes to Augusta, and he's got the Masters all weekend. What is this transition week like from Augusta to right up the road to Hilton Head if you're covering both events for both players and for media members?
You know, it's interesting. It's obviously a very easy drive just to come up, a little over 2 hours to get here. Last week is so hectic. There's so much going on. It's a major championship. Obviously, it's the Masters, one of the biggest sporting events in the world. And then you come here to the RBC Heritage, which is much more laid back, low key, super fun golf course, awesome vibe. I mean, the community really gets behind it, but now it's a designated event. So all the big boys are in town. The field's the best it's ever been. You know, it's interesting. It was a little quiet out there, I thought, today. I think guys are still trying to get their legs under them and rest a little bit. But I think once the bell goes off tomorrow, it'll be all systems go, and I expect a great tournament.
You know, there's a lot of speculation about how CBS would handle if a live player was in contention, and is there going to be a lot of problems with live players and PGA players? And we had Scott Stallings on the show a couple times, Colt, and he said it's overblown, that players aren't really talking about it as much, and there's not this huge bit of animosity between the two. Has that been your understanding from talking to guys and covering the sport also, that at least it seems like now things have smoothed over a bit from a year ago?
Yeah, listen, I didn't hear one negative comment or anything to do with a live player or a PGA Tour player. I thought everything went great. I thought all the networks showed all the golfers very fairly. Obviously, Brooks Koepka being in the lead most of the week, he's going to be a central part of the coverage. Phil Mickelson making a late charge on Sunday was a big part of the coverage. You know, yeah, I agree. I think the media, you know, kind of hypes it up a little bit. Honestly, in the media, you want like that rivalry thing. You would like some animosity, but it's not there. They're golfers. I think golf's different than other sports. But I will say, you know, I think this really, we look forward to the last three major championships of the year a lot more now because these live guys got in the mix and made it very entertaining. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of live. I don't think it's quite what I don't think you can compare it to the PGA Tour, but it was good to see those guys get back in there. I said at the start of the week, Brooks Koepka coming off a win and finally being back to being almost 100% healthy, if not 100% healthy, that he could be a problem at the Masters just because he takes his game to another level at major championships, and we saw that again last week.
Colt, how well liked is Jon Rahm by the players and the tour, and what allows him to be so consistent in the toughest conditions, which he certainly faced, and the toughest courses where it's predictable that he's going to be atop the leaderboard?
Well, he has zero weaknesses. That's one. I mean, he's good at every aspect of the game, which is why he's the number one player in the world. He's an extremely tough competitor, no matter if he's playing on the PGA Tour, a major championship, at home at Silverleaf or Whisper Rock. He wants to rip your throat out. That's just how he is. That's what makes him one of the greats. But at the same time, off the golf course, he is so kind and caring and a joy to be around. You know, he's easy to root for, but he's one of those guys. I feel like even when some of the other best players in the world get in the same group as him or see his name moving up the leaderboard, they know, okay, this is going to be a problem. You know, he's not going to just go away. Very rarely do we see him play poorly. He's already got 4 wins this year and made over $13 million in 2023. It's crazy. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever seen. He's extremely strong, spends a lot of time in the gym. I was out there with him on the during the Pro-Am today for the RBC Heritage. Obviously very tired, but very excited at the same time. And I think one more good night's sleep and he'll be ready to go. Wouldn't be surprised to see him play well again this week.
Is Koepka back? Is the major version of Koepka back versus what we've seen in recent years?
It's so hard to say. Like, my opinion of this is Brooks Koepka gets up for the biggest moments. You know, when he was on the PGA Tour, he said the other events just don't get his attention that much. It's all about the majors for him. And that's why he didn't win that many times outside of major championships. Now, you look at WM Phoenix Open, where it's a ton of people, one of the biggest crowds you see in the game of golf. That got him excited, and he got going, and he played well, and he's won there a couple times. You know, Live's a little more laid-back atmosphere. You got the shorts, you got the shotgun start, 54 holes, no cut. I don't know if that triggers Brooks Koepka's mind to really, really compete. That's just my opinion. I don't know. He might treat it the same way he does a major championship. I'm not sure. But what we saw last week at the Masters is the Brooks Koepka of old, where he went on that crazy major run, and it sure looks like he's back. I mean, his game looked fantastic. The health the last 2 years has been the biggest thing for him. He was, I don't know, I don't want to speculate on what percentage his body was at, but he was in a lot of discomfort trying to play golf. And this last week, he looked great. He just didn't get the job done on Sunday.
Speaking of percentage someone's body's at playing golf, did you see the video of Tiger Woods? And what did you make of his withdrawal from the tournament? And there's all this talk, because his caddy said, hey, if we could ride in a golf cart, he'd be able to win another major. To which I'm like, well, let's put him in a golf cart because I want to see Tiger win another major. But Tiger's adamant that's never going to happen, right?
It won't. Yeah. I'm with Tiger on that. You know, he believes that walking is part of the game, like most guys do out there. And as great as Tiger Woods is, as much as he's done for the game, I don't think a player would complain if he got in a cart, but Tiger will never do it. You know, all the physical tools are there, but he's got to have the perfect storm almost work out for him to win a major, I think. When we saw the forecast early in the week, we knew he was in trouble just because the body doesn't work the way he wants it to when it gets cold. You know, he needs it to be 85, 90 degrees, and that's why I'm a little concerned about Oak Hill up in New York here in just a few weeks for the PGA. Like, it could be very cold up there. And then you go to LA Country Club where the weather should be perfect for the U.S. Open, but it's a brutal walk. You know, it's up there, not quite as hard as Augusta National as far as a walk, I would say, but it's not the easiest. He needs someplace very flat. And then you go to the Open Championship, and you never know what could happen there. It could be freezing, it could be hot, but it's tough. That was tough to watch. You know, when he made the double bogey on 15 and 16 in the third round, and it looked like he could barely get the ball out of the hole on 16. It's one of those ones that, like, I don't understand why he keeps doing it to himself. Like, if you can't win, when he made the cut on the number, I was almost like, okay, does he really need to stick around in this brutal weather, knowing that he can't win? I know he's not a quitter. He never wants to pack it in. But when it's 48 degrees, wind chill of 42, raining sideways, and you're 14 shots back, it's like, man, you have nothing to prove.
He proves he's smart by putting on rain gear. Chad and I were joking yesterday how many players just refused to put on gear and just played in the pouring rain and then the cold too. That was the other part of it. How do they not get sick? Let's start there.
Well, they probably do.
Oh,
I know I got a little under the weather in the weather down there, but if you could make comfortable rain gear, you would be a billionaire. I mean, it's just, rain gear is so brutal. I'm not a big fan of playing in it. I'm kind of like them. I put it on in between shots and then take it off because I want to be comfortable while I try to swing. I love
keeping the ball dry, but not the player dry. That was
exactly. That's but yeah, you know, and I'm at the point now too where I quit, so I don't play in the rain. That's a rule. If it rains, I'm out.
Do the more fashion forward players, Colt, like want to accessorize a little more? They're getting
You
all
gotta
this
look
gear
good
from their
out there.
sponsors, right? So it's like, hey, here's my chance to wear my rain suit that they provided for me.
God, the rain gear sucks though. I've never been a fan of it. Never can get it comfortable, but you know what? It is what it is. Those conditions were brutal. I felt so bad for the guys that got on the wrong side of the wave there. You know, Justin Thomas, there you go, showing Justin right there, hitting his drive 238 yards up the 18th during that second round and hitting a wood. I mean, these guys normally hit 8, 9, possibly wedge into that hole. That was just crazy. And we saw a lot of things we're not used to seeing. Short drives, long clubs going into those greens, and it just played extremely difficult. I mean, when's the last time you think Justin Thomas shot 42 on 9 holes of golf?
Yeah. We were chatting with Scott Stallings earlier, Colt, and he was telling us just how quick and how surprised he was, even for Augusta, they were able to turn over the course. 12 tee box, he said, was just chewed up, and they completely sodded it overnight, and you couldn't even tell the new sod was down. And then the trees, how quickly they got the trees off the tee box at 17, and the fact you couldn't even say, including the fact that he believes they made a bench out of the wood, and it was at the first tee the next day.
I mean, nothing they do surprises me. The place is magical. I walked around on Sunday, and after all the rain, it really didn't even feel that wet at all. I know they have sub-air and everything, but you think there would be certain spots where there might be a puddle here or a puddle there because of all the rain. No, it's gone. The place is immaculate. You never see a piece of trash on the ground or a piece of grass out of place. There's nothing like it. So with what Scott Stallings said, I wouldn't be one bit surprised if that actually did happen.
Colt, can you tell us a story about the bet you placed with Phil Mickelson on Jon Rahm back in the day, and then what has happened since that bet was made?
I'll tell you what, this story is coming around a lot more now since he won the Masters. I've shared it a couple times, but I believe back it was 2016. Jon Rahm had just turned pro in May, right after the NCAAs. Was starting to play on some sponsors exemptions on the PGA Tour, and I was sitting around with Phil Mickelson one day during a rain delay in Memphis, and we were talking about Jon Rahm and how he'd recently played with him at Wishbrook, and John went out and shot 62 and just dusted Phil. And he said, I think this kid's a top 10 player in the world right now. I said, that's a pretty aggressive statement considering he has no status on any tour. And he said, well, I'll make you a bet. And I'm not going to give you all the terms, but I'll give you some. He said, give me some odds. And 1 year from today, Jon Rahm will be in the top 10 in the official world golf rankings. And I said, well, that doesn't seem very smart to me, considering he has no tour card. He's got to play on sponsor exemptions. If he plays bad at those, he's got to go to Q school. If he ends up having to play a year on the Korn Ferry Tour, you're dead. You have no chance of winning. He goes, I agree, but I'm willing to make this bet. And damn it, he was right, unfortunately. And I paid up. John knows about the story. He thinks it's funny. It's it sucked at the time to have to pay Phil what I did, but now it's a great story that I will always have about one of the best players we've ever seen play the game.
Based on reports, maybe one of the few good bets that Phil Mickelson made over the last 15, 20 years.
I will tell you this. I root for Jon Rahm. I'm a big fan of Jon Rahm. That was the year he won at Torrey Pines for the first time, and he made the 50-footer coming down the hill for eagle on the last to wrap it up. And I was at a bar in Scottsdale with some buddies, and as loud as the music was when that putt went in, I think I yelled louder than the music. I was like, you've got to be kidding me that just happened, because I knew I was in trouble if he happened to win.
Do you think we're just now seeing the start of Sam Bennett, or is this a story we look back on 5 years from now and say, boy, that was cool, but maybe he hasn't done as much since then, or does this guy have a really good future?
He's a gamer, man. He's fun to watch. I covered the USAM for Golf Channel last year, so I got to spend a lot of time with him. Super nice kid. Doesn't do anything like really flashy. He even said, like, my golf swing's not the prettiest. He just knows how to play the game, it seems like. He's not scared of the big moment. I was shocked after the second round when he said, I don't think I'm going to be nervous tomorrow. I'm like, how the hell are you not nervous? I'm nervous for you, and I'm not even having to hit any of the shots. But that was an impressive week. I know it's not what he wanted on the weekend. It would have been so cool if he could have finished in that top 12, so he got in next year. But listen, this kid seems to have a lot of game. You don't get to where you are in the world amateur rankings. You don't win the USAM. You don't be in the final group of the third round of the Masters if you don't have a lot of game. So I'm excited to see what his future holds.
I know he's doing just fine, but is he too young to realize the money that he missed out on based on his amateur status?
I mean, I thought he was going to turn pro probably after the Masters anyway, but he is big into the going and winning a national championship with his teammates at Texas A&M. He's focused on that with NIL money as well. Like, listen, I think he's going to get at least a little something out of there, but he'll be pro here pretty shortly, I would imagine.
Go-to song as the DJ at T-Bone.
Anything country that gets the place going. I would say that Toby Keith should have been a cowboy. Got the place rocking pretty nice. Just everyone was singing along. Colin Baton Rouge, anything Garth Brooks. It was a blast. T-Bones was a good host for us. I cannot believe they let us do it. But shout out. See you next year. Maybe I can get a little paid DJ set next year.
See, we've been a couple times. The only place I know to go in Augusta is the Hooters. Right there on the strip. I feel like that's where everyone goes. I didn't know T-Bones was a hot spot.
Well, the food's way better at T-Bones. It's no doubt about it. Then the bar scene's pretty good. And then, you sweet talk them enough, and if they like you enough, maybe they'll hand you the iPad and let you DJ a little bit.
They don't want that from Chatterai. You can keep it. You can keep it.
We'll probably bring the mood down a little bit. We won't be learning to rope and ride like Toby Keith sang. It'll take it down a little bit. So
I mean,
y'all
they
made the right
Nashville.
decision with you.
Yeah, you're in Nashville. You can probably guess what I was playing. Obviously, anything Morgan Wallen was rather popular.
No doubt.
It's basically what we hear from the band out here every Friday at 6th and Peabody was probably what you were playing, and that's just them taking requests from the crowd and then getting them going.
I noticed during the rain delays, the short rain delays in some cases, CBS and ESPN as well, trying to grabbing some of the NFL players or whoever it may be that were on the course. What was it like from your vantage point with the coverage that you were hosting and just trying to jump back and forth between what the weather was allowing you to do?
So I got very fortunate since I was with the featured groups there on Masters.com and ESPN Plus. I was in the morning. I never really had to deal with any of the delays.
Oh, good.
Basically, so I got pretty lucky. But I tell you what, it was a scene last week. That was one of the most anticipated Masters. The people that were there running into Josh Allen, Travis Kelce. Ran into Sam Darnold, a number of musicians, all kinds of different people. I saw Nick Jonas walking the fairways out there. It's pretty cool. And it's one of those places where it doesn't really matter who you are. You can just go because there's no cell phones. No one's going to be stopping and asking you for pictures. You just get to go out there and enjoy the golf. It's a really special week.
It is exactly the setting that they would love. That anyone would love, really. But that's exactly right. They're walking around and they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, you walk by and you're like, wow, that's Josh Allen. And that's it. He's gone. See you.
Yeah, I'm going to go get my $1.50 sandwich, and I'll let Josh Allen keep walking. Yeah. Hey, Colt, thank you as always, man. We love the podcast. Great work on the featured rounds as well. We're watching here in studio and throughout the morning here in Nashville from last weekend, and look forward to everything going on in Hilton Head this weekend.
You got it. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
Thanks, Colt.
Always love coming on.
Thank you.
Same. Colt Knost. The Subpar podcast is a must.
Big week for Nick Jonas. They were the musical guest on SNL Saturday night also. So
really?
Down at the Masters for the weekend, then flying up to New York, and he's with Jonas Brothers that night.
Tad is very consistent on SNL.
I'm really not. I only watch because Molly Shannon hosted, and I like to watch when former cast members host. So I tuned in for that. There was some funny stuff on it.
Okay.
Some of it not so much, but there are a few good things.
I miss the days of Molly Shannon and the cast.
Some choice nugs, as some might say, on the show. The new Jonas Brothers song, not digging it.
Okay.
I don't really celebrate their entire catalog
Not
or anything.
surprised.
I can't tell you a lot of their old stuff, but I can tell you the new stuff is not good.
Hit us up on social. You can also do it at YouTube by subscribing to the OutKick channel. When we come back, we'll discuss a player that has asked for a trade and another player who's expected to be traded, but we just haven't seen it yet. I'm not talking about Aaron Rodgers. That's next on Hot Mic.
I've always been a very fond of Rob Manfred. I got to know Rob very closely during the labor negotiations when I was a player rep for the 10 years of my career. Always respected him. Always thought he loved the game. Some of the stuff that's happened in the last couple of years makes me question that. But again, I know the guy, so I think he's trying to come from a good place, even if he makes decisions I don't agree with. However, if you're curious as to the financial state of the game, when the manager, the commissioner, or the owner of a company says something in the media that just kind of pisses all over the quality of the product, you know that they're in a financially good place. Rob Manfred talking about analytics, and he's not wrong in a couple of senses this way. So he was asked about it, and he's talking about it on record, saying analytics is an arms race to nowhere. Claims that the marginal value of investing in analytics has never been lower, and he's making that claim. Franchises are pouring resources into something which has little return on investment, little ROI, and that is actively damaging the game. Manfred said, and he's right with this comment, once everybody's doing it, that little margin that maybe you're getting, I'm sure that whatever that margin was at one point in time, whatever it is today, it sure as heck is not worth the damage that was done to the game over a period of time. Okay. So I'm probably going to get bleeped here in the next couple seconds. But this, to me, is a politician complaining on Twitter. And my response is, you're the commissioner. Why are you complaining about your game? You're in charge. Shut up and do something. Why, as a politician, are you on Twitter complaining about the things I'm complaining about? I voted you in to fix it. Don't complain to me. Fix it or shut the hell up. Okay, I'm done. I was doing analytics. And you'll laugh at this, Bill, but in 1997, I thought I came up with this new stat. I said, batting average is really irrelevant. When a guy's hitting 302 and his on-base percentage is 302, I mean, wow, that's not good. But I thought, you know what? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. Those two combined might be a cool number. So I had OB percentage. This in my notebook, it was OB percentage plus SLG percentage equals, like, I had it like danger factor or something. I ranked hitters that way. And unfortunately, I didn't copyright that because it became OPS. But analytics are, I think they're essential to succeed to a degree. I think they're an excuse for other people, and I think they're a reason that other people are great. I think you look at Gwynn, you look at all the great players of my era, they were doing analytics. They were just doing it a different way. Maddox was probably, he understood. And I think like I did, I didn't care what your average was. What I cared was your on-base percentage, your first pitch swing percentage, what your strikeout to walk ratio was. What did you hit with runners in scoring position? What was your swing percentage with 2 strikes? And then as I got older and I developed a sample set by facing the same guy 25 times, those numbers would come to fruition. They would be, and I learned that my sabermetric data versus hitters was different than the rest of the league.
Hot Mic rolls on. Mike Gunzelman from OutKick will be in studio with us in hour number 3. Looking forward to that in about 30 minutes. Guns always brings it. And we'll
good energy guy.
We'll have great conversations from
High
what he's
energy.
written about. Also, like spoiler alerts with the expectation of spoiler alerts for certain shows. I'm not even watching the show I'm thinking of. Chad is.
Succession.
And I know what happened based on what I saw on social media.
Yes.
And that's what we'll discuss.
We'll get into this with Guns, but if I know someone watches the show that I watch, and they didn't see it the night something big happened, and I did, it's irrational. I should not get mad at them if they had something going on or just didn't watch it that night. But when I show up the next day, Ryan Albanese, who was in here, watched the show, had not seen the episode. And I was a little bit pissed off with him because I'm thinking, how can we not talk about this now? Because then I was like, okay, well, I'm probably not going to see him for 2 or 3 more weeks. But once you watch it, let's talk about it. Because I really want to talk about it now that I've announced I've seen it. And then you haven't, and then I'm disappointed. So we end up there also sometimes. Where I feel like if you're really into a show like that, Succession is, for those who have followed it from the beginning, that is a Sunday night watch. Like, if you started at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, you don't have to watch it live.
Yeah, but
you need to get through it on Sunday night.
appointment.
And then so you can talk about it the next day with people that may have watched it via group text or in person. So I think there's different levels of shows that we'll get into with him on whether or not you can spoil it.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have performed financial surgery on their roster this offseason.
Yes.
They entered the offseason $55 million, I believe, over the cap. And they've had to get down to where they are within the legal confines of the salary cap going into the offseason for the new league year. What they've done is they had to get rid of Donovan Smith, Leonard Fournette, Cameron Brate at tight end, Ryan Suckup at kicker. They've had to trim off the financial constraints, but they've also had to restructure. They have restructured deals for long-term contracted players. Chris Godwin, Vita Vea, Carlton Davis, Ryan Jensen, Russell Gage, he also agreed to a pay cut. And they've also had to part ways with other members of a draft class that Devin White is a part of. Devin White, star linebacker there, and they picked up his 5th-year option. They picked up a guarantee of $11.7 million on that 5th-year option. He wants a contract extension. And he has also said on social media, hey, it's been a great 4 years. Reports are he wants to be traded. And he put out on social, 4 years went by fast, thank you, along with the pirate flag and a peace emoji. This situation reminds me a lot of the Jeffrey Simmons situation last year. Solid player, among the best at what he does. And the Titans didn't have the cap space to make any type of move for a contract extension. And A.J. Brown demanded a trade because he wasn't going to get paid. Jeffrey Simmons didn't. And then they get to a point this past week where
a year later
they agree to a massive deal. He's now the 2nd highest paid player for his position, second only to Aaron Donald. And he played ball literally and figuratively with Tennessee, meaning he didn't hold out, although he missed 2 practices in the meaningless mandatory minicamp for his position, I'm saying, for his status. He had a stay-in. He didn't come out for practice. And then he played through injury despite not getting the contract extension prior to the start of the year. And he had the comment about how the Titans told him they were going to have to find the money. They didn't know if they had the money to pay him now. Well, they paid him the following offseason. And the Bucs don't want to trade him. They're saying that. But Devin White's saying, give me the contract extension or we're not. I'm not pleased with that. Trade me. He could be a piece in the draft that gets moved. Could be.
It's always fascinating when you have really good players on teams that could be really bad. And Tampa Bay now could be really bad.
Yes.
In the spot they're in. Probably should be really bad. And then how you manage those assets. Because Devin White is obviously still young enough and he's good enough to where he could be a pivotal piece in the next Super Bowl run for Tampa Bay 3, 4, 5 years from now. But if you have a valuable piece and you know you're bad already, what's the value in moving that piece to get more future considerations for what you're trying to build, as opposed to holding on to a really good player? Because here you have a really good player that you brought in, that you developed, that could be a good player for you for a long time. Those are tough decisions.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to just get rid of every good player you have.
Right.
But you also look at it, if your eyes are wide open, saying, well, what's the use of paying top dollar an extension for this player if for the first 2 years of this, we're going to be in a desperate search for the next quarterback that's going to lead this franchise?
Well, they've got Baker, right? So I'm looking, again, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, that's not the guy who's going to lead them to the next Super Bowl.
Could they also make a move? Could they be a surprise team to make a move for one of these quarterbacks? Haven't heard anything on them.
No, you're right.
And, I mean, Baker Mayfield is great, but he was available and no one picked up the phone and no one really made it happen last year. And he has a starting opportunity. That's what he wanted. Starting opportunity doesn't mean QB1, you're the guy. It means you're competing for the job.
And look at the quarterbacks in that division.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
point.
we haven't even mentioned this team, but what if Lamar Jackson now is suddenly with Tampa Bay?
Tampa, again, they need to go rookie because they don't have the cap space.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Well, I'm saying just theoretically, if Devin White was a part of a deal and they dumped a lot of their salary, and Lamar Jackson, it's Desmond Ridder in Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's going to be whatever rookie they take in Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
It's
New Orleans with Carr.
With Carr, Derek Carr in New Orleans.
And then Baker Mayfield right now with Kyle
Which
Trask
would become
backing
Lamar
him up.
Jackson. Yeah.
Kyle Trask and Mayfield, the two QBs in Tampa.
Brutal division.
Yeah. It was last year too.
Yep.
Also brutal for the Arizona Cardinals. DeAndre Hopkins, they want to trade him. They want to move him. But the contract itself is preventing that. And unlike other big trades, the fear is the contract is going to hold back Hopkins when it comes to NFL draft night. But, Chad, I realize he hasn't played a ton over the last 2 years, part of it due to the failed performance drug test. He missed 6 games to start the year. But when he's on the field, they are a different team. And I can't help but think what he can mean to any piece with a young quarterback.
Better.
Yes.
He completely transforms an offense. I mean, I look at him similar to A.J. Brown. When the Titans traded him away to the Eagles, it made the Eagles a much better offense, made the Titans a much worse offense. DeAndre Hopkins is that type of guy. He's going to make a huge impact if he lands somewhere else, or if he's eligible and healthy and playing with the Cardinals, makes a big impact on them.
No doubt. And Jonathan Gannon has said, hey, we look forward to welcoming Hopkins whenever he's ready. Well, he's ready as long as Arizona's going to pay up. And right now they're going to have to, based on the contract that they gave him whenever they traded for him from Houston. Coming up, the Big Ten has a new commissioner. Our thoughts on his impact next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really got to lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll them, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper-rational. They looked at the data, and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the final hour is here for the Wednesday edition. Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network with Hot Mike. Mike Gunzelman. He's in studio with us coming up in 20 minutes from OutKick.com. We'll discuss the protocol for spoiler alerts and much more, including his time on the Warped Tour and the photo that you will see coming up as if you're watching on YouTube. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just search out OutKick. We hope you'll like, subscribe, and join Chad in the chat. How's that going today?
It's good. Got a couple trolls, but other than that, just fine.
A few Daniel Snyders?
No, I mean it's someone who's in here that goes by BioJwerk.
Oh yeah,
that's B-I
long-time listener, first-time caller.
2 zeros, B-I 2 zeros, D-W-E-R capital K. Yeah. And I responded and said, this person's definitely real.
I think that's Matt's Reddit
definitely not
sub-handle.
hiding behind an alias right now.
Yes. Chad, no alias is needed now for the Big Ten commissioner. We know who it is, finally. And what do you think of the new hire? Tony Petitti, who is former Major League Baseball executive. He is a former CBS TV exec as well. And he's done a little bit of everything, gaining experience throughout his long career and under the radar, much like Kevin Warren whenever he was hired away from the Minnesota Vikings to run the conference.
It's a hire that makes sense because with media rights being such an important part of everything these leagues are doing, this is a direction that you could see any conference going in. Doesn't knock my socks off and say, wow, that's one I wasn't expecting.
But, yeah.
I joked, but I said, you really want to just blow the lid off the thing, make Greg Sankey an offer he can't refuse. If you want to really get the competition going, go hire the SEC's commissioner. to be your commissioner. I understand that was never likely and maybe not even possible. But I do like the direction they're going here because they're hiring someone that's got a varied experience, both network, digital, and within a league. So they can properly navigate the different channels you got to navigate to make media deals happy, to keep television partners happy, and to understand what makes a viable business. Because this is no longer about academia, school presidents, even athletic directors. It's about running a business, running a huge business when you're running the Big Ten or any major conference. And that's where you're seeing the direction go, is with hiring business people to lead these entities. And we saw it again yesterday with the news that the Big Ten has their man.
You know, it's different. Charlie Baker replacing Mark Emmert. That one you're like, good luck running the NCAA right now as president. But I would equate this to picking up where Roger Goodell will leave the NFL. You know? I mean, it's just a la carte. You've got the creme de la creme.
Yeah, there's no big thing to do.
Yeah,
right
so
now.
it doesn't. They don't have to behind
You're
the
not
scenes.
coming in having to negotiate immediately the next TV contract, which is always the biggest thing.
But you get to set up what's on the horizon for whatever the contractually the two sides, Fox, CBS, and the conference is going to build together. And you've got the guy behind the scenes where maybe he does do that behind the scenes, knock the socks off of those types of meetings, negotiations, and deals.
Now, the planning's already been in the works, but you are going to usher in UCLA and USC into the conference and start to break out schedule and everything going on with that. That's going to be a big undertaking.
Can I give you an idea? So SEC has SEC Network, right?
Yep.
Big Ten Network. What if it becomes USCTrojans.tv, UCLA Bruins.tv, and you follow the MLB.tv model, and you have the team-centric subscription service right there. And you have the guy who oversaw all of it, running the conference, that can show the model and why it worked for Major League Baseball and how it can work for a conference that's going to continue to add teams.
I think it's brilliant. I also don't think there's any way that you could convince the conference to equally separate and split the revenues from that for this reason.
But it's on the team to do that. They're already fundraising as it is. There are haves and have-nots. When I say team, it's the program. It would be for the program, not the football team.
Yes.
The department.
But here's what I'm saying. When you're talking conference commissioner, you're talking socialism in terms of the way the conference is divvied up with revenues. There is no way that OhioState.tv should be given the same payout to everyone else as Illinois.tv or Northwestern.tv.
What if all of those went to the same server?
If we're looking at it from I like your first idea better from a business perspective. That's the Major League Baseball model. The Los Angeles Dodgers TV deal nets more than the Pittsburgh Pirates. It goes into a pot, but those teams are also making that revenue.
Right.
So of their own local deals. So as a capitalist, I'm fine with Ohio State making their money off OhioState.tv, just like USC makes it also, just like Northwestern makes it. But I think from a conference setup, it'll be tough to convince for the greater good if you divvy it up by every team individually. That Ohio State channel is going to make infinitely more than a lot of other programs. And to get them to the Nebraska channel is going to make infinitely more than other programs, than the Maryland channel, as an example, in the Big Ten. So I do like the idea of you have to subscribe to like a subsidiary of Big Ten Network that is a team-owned, program-owned channel. But I don't know how you make it work with distributions back to each individual institution.
Well, it would serve. I think of it from like the VFL films.
Yeah.
You have that.
No, I get what you're saying. I like it.
But can you have that under the SEC umbrella? Which again, I'm just using that as an example for how I would try to crowdsource this with the Big Ten. But hey, the SEC network, they're going in this model with ESPN Plus, and all. How do we make the digital footprint as big for the programs and the viable big money that we can bring in on top of what we're already going to do that can also serve our three big partners for our TV purposes. And everyone helps out everyone in that area. So instead of like, they're splitting the pie for the kickoff times, right? What if they split the pie for the .TV revenue? And then you have that digitally as well as what you're getting on your programming Saturdays.
It can't be 100% split because of the discrepancy between the amount of subscriptions for some schools over others. But I do think what you can do with this model is if you're the Big Ten, you say, all right, we have Big Ten Network. We're now setting up the infrastructure for Purdue.tv, OhioState.tv, Rutgers.tv, all of that. As part of it, you give 25% of all revenue back to the conference. That's evenly split in that way. And then whatever else you make on top of that,
tax.
you're
paying
whatever
your
else you
tax.
make is on. That's good. It's on you. That goes to your athletic fund.
Yeah.
Then it's okay. Now we're basically paying for a membership, and that money, all that revenue, 25% of profits, let's say, goes into the pot, and then it gets dispersed out. But that also goes to the administration of those networks through a central server. That is the Big Ten Network. And then if you make a ton of money more on subscriptions on top of that, it goes back to you. So then Ohio State feels okay with that because they know they're going to make a lot more money than other programs.
Yeah, and if you don't participate, because not everyone's jumping into it based on budget size, right?
Yeah.
Initially. You still get a piece of the pie for those that do.
I think everyone would do it if it was provided for them. Like here's what it is.
They have the power to do that now with their partnerships.
Every SEC, example, every SEC program now has their own video department that is in conjunction with SEC Network.
Right.
Big Ten has the same thing through Big Ten Network, so they can do the content however they want.
They do have Big Ten Network, but I'm saying they also have CBS, NBC, and Fox.
Yeah.
And there is, three massive branches.
Oh, I don't think you're putting anything those networks want on it.
No, but I'm saying, you have them. I mean, you have the guy who worked for CBS and the guy that started MLB.TV running the conference now.
Yeah.
I think there's plenty of avenues to, if CBS doesn't want to carry every Big Ten basketball game or whatever, and you've got the ability to charge a fee or whatever.
Yeah, it ended up being more like baseball games midweek and
Coaches
softball
shows.
games, volleyball games, going to and volleyball's a big deal in Big Ten. But it goes to those individual brands. You get to watch it there.
And maybe that's a distant future type thing, but if it's all on the phone.
But they made a hire that gets us closer to the future with this move. So I think for that reason it's smart.
The nod is there. So have you seen the transformations recently of the NFL offensive linemen?
It's been going on for a while.
So
I've seen a lot of guys that go one of two directions when they are done playing.
Yes. But the guys that I think are familiar, Alan Faneca comes to mind, Pro Football Hall of Famer, who would stop by and chat with us at the Super Bowls. Like when he walks by and you're like, that's Alan Faneca versus what you used to see for him on the offensive line. Plenty of examples. But Russell Okung, and famous for representing himself and had some massive contracts with Seattle, offensive lineman. I mean, he looks like a kicker now. He has slimmed down so much.
He looks like an NBA player when you see him. He's so thin. This picture of him. I struggle with this picture because every time I glance at it, I think he's completely nude because he's wearing flesh-colored sweatpants every time I look up at it from a distance. But these guys go one of two directions. We've seen offensive linemen that are dead within 15 years because they take such poor care of themselves. And then we see guys like Russell Okung who look like they could go run a marathon after playing offensive line.
There's Joe Thomas.
It's also amazing to me when you see the shell of the athlete underneath the huge physical facade of an offensive tackle. And I'm looking at a guy that could have played in the NBA. Like long arms, big hands, athletic frame, right? That's what it takes to play tackle in the league. It's just that you're also enormous on top of that because you're overeating, you're working out all the time, and you're big weight-wise, right?
You have to keep the weight on.
But when you look at the shell of Russell Okung, it's amazing to see this guy could have played other sports. if he just kept his weight down his whole life.
Yeah, but in order to get the mass contract that he needed,
for sure,
he had to put the weight on. We tell the story of Keith Bullock. Bullock had to keep weight on. It was very difficult. He knew he was going to drop the pounds. He went to Syracuse as a safety. He ended up moving up as linebacker, and he needed to bulk up based on the era that he was playing in. And going into camp, he would do nothing but eat fast food. Nothing but fast food. Going into training camp in an era where you come in shape, because he knew he was going to drop so much weight that he would come in overweight, and then by the time you got to mid-August, he was ready to go for the NFL season. And then the difficult part of that is keeping the weight on during the week as you're rehabbing from injuries and everything else. It's a grind. It's worth it to them, but it's a grind on the front.
But good for Russell Okung. Looks great.
It's a grind to it's grind to the NFL draft where there's debate, some manufactured, some not. I'm all for guys like Pete Prisco who think for themselves, present the argument for why or why not they like a player instead of just repeating things that we hear over and over and over again. He gave the example of Will Levis. He likes Will Levis. No one really says that. Chris Sims has Will Anderson as the 5th best pass rusher in this draft. At tier 3 on his top 5 edge prospects. I love Chris Sims, but let's be honest here. Based on what we've seen, how can he not be at worst number 2 if you're going to take Tyree Wilson above him, which some mocks have had? But there's no way I'm looking down the list and thinking Will Anderson from Bama and the consistency that he played with is not at least number 2 on the list. Do you think he put him at 5 to get the headline?
When Chris Sims says this is not a hot take, when he starts talking about this on his podcast, it is in fact a hot take. If you have to preface by saying, Will Anderson at 5, this is not a hot take, by the way. No, it's a hot take. Because you know you're completely separate of everyone else and where they have Will Anderson.
He also says that the Cardinals are not going to trade.
I think he probably deep down believes this. I think he's talked to someone in the league that probably has this list that way, that has no chance of drafting Will Anderson.
And
is why they have it that way.
I mentioned Prisco. Prisco's he's not down on him like this. But he also said, like, hey, if we're going to compare him to where he should be for how we discuss him, he's not on that level of the Myles Garrett type players.
I think he's really good.
Me too.
Maybe they're right. I think Will Anderson suffers from this. His name has been out there for so long. We've talked about him for so long, and people just get fatigued and start coming up with reasons to pick at him because it's been quiet during this draft season with him, because there's no reason to question his game for the most part. But now we're going to start to question it just to question something.
Yeah. Quote was, I really like Will Anderson. He's a good football player. He's just not elite. There's not very much elite about him, is what Sims said.
Well, we'll see. Sometimes just being an elite football player makes you elite. You can nitpick and say, well, this trade isn't elite, this trade isn't elite. Well, okay. You could still be an elite player. This happens all the time with wide receivers. Well, he's not a 4.3 guy. He's fast, but not elite speed. And then when you put everything together, if it makes an elite player, even if you're not looking at one facet of the game and saying, I don't see one thing that's better than everyone else in the draft, you're still going to have a great player in the NFL for years to come. So I'm not buying what Chris Sims is saying. And I also think that when you preface by saying this isn't a hot take, you know it's a hot take.
We'll get Chris on at some point.
I'd love to have Chris on. By the way, I had so many people comment yesterday saying, why didn't you challenge Pete Prisco on his Will Levis take? And I've been so consistent with my Will Levis take.
Yeah.
I'm not going to use the time of a guest we have on that we don't have on normally to shout at them over Zoom when they're on with us. I disagree with Pete Prisco. I said it right when he was up, but I can't. I'm not going to take the 15 minutes we have with a guest to just tell him what I've said on this show for months about Will Levis and then share my opinion with him.
And it's also,
when we're trying to get his opinion on multiple prospects in one sitting, right?
It's also an opinion.
I just want people to understand that concept
for months.
Yeah.
Will
if
Levis
Dan Dockich is on with us, who's on with us weekly, or Bobby Carpenter, I'll battle with him a little bit after the Will Levis take on that, right? or challenge them on it. I'm not going to waste our time with Pete Prisco when we have him on for 15 minutes twice a year to battle with him on Will Levis.
But
I thought that was understood, but I need to explain.
On Levis, he's heard the argument where Will Levis is not on par with the other two that we're talking about all the time, with Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. And we've maintained he's a good quarterback with Levis. He's not number one overall. And that's something that Pete Prisco has heard. So he structured what he came in and said about Levis by answering the questions that we would have come back with anyway. Now, to each his own. But Levis is, I mean, to me, we've seen what he is on the field.
If you're going out of your way to talk about how bad the offensive line is, how, it's Kentucky football, the offensive coordinator.
Right.
When you're bending yourself into a pretzel repeatedly to make excuses for the guy, something's up. Something's up. We've had plenty of other quarterbacks who have been at non-premier programs that what you say about him was, can you believe this guy did X at this school?
You know what we don't do?
And what he was able to accomplish?
We don't make those excuses for year 3 quarterbacks in the NFL behind poor offensive lines and poor structure around them. They're busts.
Agreed.
Coming up, guns, no bust. We've got Mike Gunzelman from OutKick, and we discuss this. As far as spoiler alerts go for the most popular shows, what is the decorum? What is the protocol to follow? I think will vary on opinion, much like many on social media did this past Sunday. That's next on Hot Mic.
Controversial opinion.
I think girls with hairy armpits should be eradicated from the face of this earth.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
Hottest take is that In-N-Out is overrated. Yep.
Absolutely.
Because their French fries taste like cardboard, and they get soggy too quick if you get them animal style, and their burgers are just like always dry. So it's gross.
Hot dog is not a sandwich.
Why not?
Because it's not 2 separate pieces of bread.
What's your hottest take?
Normalize blacking out.
ChatGPT is going to take over the world.
Hate Duke University. I hope they never win a game in the history of life. I hate everything about them. That's my take.
Why is that your hot take? Why do you feel so strongly about that?
Air of arrogance amongst people I'm friends with, and I want to punch them in the face often.
I believe there shouldn't be any weight classes in fighting, UFC, boxing, just let the best fighter fight.
I'm a Packers fan. I think it'd be great if Aaron Rodgers leaves. It'd be really funny if he demanded all this stuff from the Jets and then stayed. LeBron James is not the go to basketball.
My hot take is that the University of Tennessee is hot trash, and so is the SEC. Go Big Ten.
I hate when people slow down when it's a green light and they think it's going to turn yellow. So they slow down anticipating that it's going to turn like red.
People do that?
Yeah, at least in Canada.
He's from Canada. I asked people from Canada for their hot takes. They don't have any. They don't have any.
I'm not a controversial person. To each their own, I guess.
Hot takes from Canada. Snapchat is cringy. Do not ask for my Snapchat if you are over 18 years old.
I think a celebrity that got canceled and shouldn't have is Hayley Williams from Paramore, simply because she said a derogatory term in her song Misery Business from like 15 years ago. 15 years later, they decide she's a criminal? I don't know about that.
I think the Beatles are overrated.
I'm here in Nashville. My hot take is that country music sucks.
Taylor Swift is overrated.
Swift is better country, for sure.
Cowboy boots aren't cool.
We are far from the most racist country in the world.
I'm so ready for the new president.
Here we go. Joe Biden is a terrible president. Trump 2024.
Hot Mic rolls on 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Chad is tweeting out the link for people to watch our next guest. He is not spoiling anyone on Succession. Guns.
Well,
Mike Gunzelman in studio with us.
What's up, fellas? Let's
What's
go.
up, man?
Let's bring the energy
Thanks
here,
for coming
Guns.
back in.
I like it.
Yeah, no, listen, congratulations. Obviously, Hot Mike coming at you with some hot takes, no doubt, for
Hey,
sure.
and Clay is down in Florida, so you're on today.
Listen, they had to get the person with the better hair, okay? I apologize.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, we
We'll vouch
said,
for you.
A little bit
we
better of a
said
flow.
let's get the best male hair in here. That's what we told Davey. If we can get the best hairdo. And
Although-
he said Guns is your guy.
Although all three of us have pretty dapper hair, I must say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chad, your thoughts?
Third on the list of
you
in
think-
this shot right now.
I'm
but-
going gray first, though. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're definitely grayer than me, and you're younger than I am too, which is shocking.
We should make bets on total gray.
I'll do one of those things where it's like the Crash Test Dummies song, where my hair just turns white overnight. Like Hutton's gonna slowly go gray, and then I'm gonna be totally white over the course of a month.
Would Crash Test Dummies play the Warped Tour? Where you? Here's the photo of Guns. How old were you here? And
That was,
how would you explain the look on your face here?
Pain. That was about 2.5 weeks of touring on the Warped Tour.
I thought you said that was 2.5 weeks ago.
It could have been, yeah.
2.5 hours ago.
Yeah, it was about 6-7 years ago. Big in the music industry, obviously with the Gun Show and
This was in
myself.
January. This photo.
This was at Bush
amazing.
the other night when I ran into you at
Yes.
Bush, Kevin Rossdale.
Chad missed the show.
It was a fun time, though. It was, oh, look at those eyes. Oh, man. Whew. Waking up. Here's the thing about anybody that
The
does
eyes
it.
of a man who knows he's got gray hair. That's what I look at when I see those eyes.
People think that touring is easy, and it seems like it is, but every day you wake up literally in a different city on a tour bus, and you're just like, what happened? Like,
And where am I? What day is it?
yeah, exactly. You have no recollection, which is also interesting because whenever a lot of musicians want to talk politics and all that, you got to realize they have no idea what's going on. A lot of time they don't really even have internet. They do press, they do radio junkets, they're doing all this stuff that they don't, for them to talk about like politics on a greater scale they're full of it. Because I've been on tour for years. You don't know you have to be reminded what city you're in before you go out to say what's up to the crowd. You don't want to be like, what's up, New York, and you're in Boston. That would be ideal, you know?
We were at the Adam Sandler show in Nashville, and Kevin James, who was a special guest, had a great bit in his stand-up act about he's just not political at all and has no clue what's going on in current events and how dumb he feels when he actually makes it out in public and people are talking about big issues and how he plays it off and he just has these lines he can drop in any conversation. It's like, yeah, I mean, the world today, am I right? What's going on? It's a great stand-up bit. Part of the world today, though, Guns, is spoiler alerts in pop culture and major shows and movies. And I feel like you're doing the Lord's work out there with this poll question.
Thank you.
And the article you wrote to try to come up with an acceptable amount of time in order to spoil a TV show.
Yes.
What went into this research? What's the conclusion?
All right. So here's the deal. The rise of social media, we don't really have, it's chaos. It's mayhem. It's bedlam. There's no rules. There's no guidelines. We don't know what to do. And it finally hit the tipping point with Succession, which, by the way, if you're not watching Succession.
I'm not yet.
Oh, gosh.
I'm not yet.
It's so good.
I'm very slow to get around to these things. I'll binge it.
Listen, it's called Priorities.
Hutton will get around to it in 2028.
Yeah. People can talk about White Lotus and all these other shows. Succession is the priority. It's the best damn show on television in years, second to none. But anyway, this past Sunday was an unbelievable episode. I'm talking all the emotions. I was shook. I couldn't go to bed. Like, I was up for hours. And you go on social media, and it's like you just want to talk to somebody. You just want to, I got to express myself. Like, what the F did we just see? And I wrote that, but I didn't say what happened. Some people started saying what happened. So this is what I was getting to, because what is the correct way? What's the timeline? When is it acceptable to finally be able to tell people in public via social media when you're allowed to say what happened in a movie or a TV show? So we asked the OutKick audience. We polled them. We asked 24 hours, 3 days, 1 week, or doesn't matter. And the results actually came in
about what you would expect, I think.
And you disavowed the results.
I did, because I think...
which I respect your hustle on this. You said, I'm going to go against the fans and say I'm giving a different ruling.
Well, first of all, they're all about 20 to 30%, and usually like that's kind of rare, but that just shows how divisive it is.
That's a good poll question.
Yeah, and how passionate it is because there's no straight answer. But we're doing, like you said, the Lord's work. And OutKick audience, OutKick fam, we love you, of course. But you're wrong when you said that you could just freely tweet out the ending, the result, the storyline whenever you want, all right? You can't do that. That's lunacy. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
So
you can't do it whenever.
First, though, tell me what you decided.
Okay.
Tell our audience what you decided on the time frame, appropriate time frame.
So the audience chose, or I should say OutKick, the polls.
Whenever you want,
said whenever you want. I broke it down. You can check it out at OutKick.com. 24 hours. My reasoning is this. You have to give at least 24 hours for a TV show. Then it's a 3-day rule that you have to say spoiler before you tweet it. And after that, it's free game. All right? It's fair game. I'm not saying you have to wait a week. It's a TV show. Let's go. We live on that instant culture. But you got to give at least 24 hours. Is that fair?
24 hours is fair. I think with the preface of...
I think 24 hours is fair. I also will say this because I'm way into this show and a lot of shows. And if I want to watch something badly, I will stay off social media if I know I can't get to it until later. So I'm a little bit different here. So I avoid spoilers on that. But Guns, if you were writing a recap of the episode, okay, because they get all these screeners. They watch it 24 hours in advance. If you're going to write a column about it, I think it is acceptable not to spoil the thing. We can now say it's been how long?
3 days. Yeah. By now, like
Logan Roy dies. Okay, if you don't watch the show,
no,
then nothing. Like this is
pains me,
our
Do you
show.
see my reaction?
But here's the thing.
And I'll say,
but
if you don't know that, then okay.
No, but
I can't help you.
I don't even watch the show, and I knew that based on Twitter.
Now, but tell me, give me a ruling on this, Guns.
Yeah.
I think it's acceptable to say, in tonight's shocking episode of Succession, you can read more about it here when you post, because these sites, they're going to post their recaps immediately.
No problem with that.
Right?
Yeah.
Everything changed in tonight's Succession, but you don't spell out one of the main characters died.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I think if you're writing a preview of the next episode and you're a few days removed, totally acceptable to say, here's what to look for now that Logan Roy is dead, and the Succession part of Succession can actually take place over 7 episodes, right?
That column tomorrow now.
Exactly. That is, you're exactly right with that. However, all right, couple things. One is, I heard from a lot of people, I write it in the article, just stay off social media. Well, sometimes you can't stay off social media.
Agreed.
All right, I live on social media like you can't.
It's kind of our
work.
jobs in a way,
we literally work on it. You can't say, just stay off social media. It's like, no. So other people said, well, mute the words. I understand that. When the Avengers came out, some people muted Avengers. You don't want to see Succession. You can't see it. You can mute the word so it won't come up in your tweet. The Mets play-by-play radio announcer, Howie Rose, love Howie, by the way, tweeted out, Logan Roy died. He didn't even include the word Succession. So even, this is the Mets announcer, so nobody's even going to think that. You had Mets fans that started going off on him because they had Succession muted. And here you have their favorite broadcaster of their favorite team telling them, spoiling that Logan Roy died.
That's a bridge too far.
15
that's a bridge
hours.
Too far.
That was less than 24 hours. You can't do that.
See, I tweeted I was watching live, and I think I put Succession went hard tonight.
Yeah.
And that was it. And that was 20 minutes into the episode when everything was happening, and that was it.
That's fine. You're allowed to talk about it.
That's a teaser.
You can't spoil
That's
it.
a teaser.
Yes.
That's not a spoiler. That's a teaser.
Yes.
Great response from Clay, who wanted to weigh in on the poll earlier this week for worst spoilers. He said, my 5-year-old told everyone that Han Solo died when he jumped into my lap during an OutKick show the day the new Star Wars came out.
Oh my. That became like a big joke, right? I think everybody's like, Han Solo dies. That was the thing people were saying before he went into the movie, and I remember that being an online thing.
But it's all. I am actually a Star Wars fan.
That's a fight back against spoilers, I think, or people being mad about them.
I'm a Star Wars fan, but I'm not a Comic-Con Star Wars fan. You know what I mean? If
I'm not Darth Nihilus, is what you're saying.
That would be mortifying, but it's so great because it was a 5-year-old. Plus, it was Clay's kid that did it. But could you imagine if that's how you found out? I had plans tomorrow night to see it. Yeah. It's the biggest franchise in the history, and Clay Travis's 5-year-old just ruined my life.
Especially knowing Clay, it makes it even funnier. Now, I will say, a show like Succession, that it's a big audience and it's a very devoted audience. I almost treat it a little bit like sports in that we're not worried about spoiling live sports. We will just tweet when you're covering an event about what's happening during the game, and then there's final scores. Tweet it immediately. Are there certain shows, Guns, that could cross over into that realm where you can't possibly spoil it because so many people are into it at such an obsessive level that you treat it like a live sporting event? Or because of streaming now and recording everything, you can never treat any live TV show that way?
It's a very good question because the viewing habits have changed. It started from everyone had to watch live to then some people had, the DVRs, into now everything's on demand. But also the rollout structure is different. Some shows come out where you can just binge them all. Others, like a Succession, you have to wait week to week to week. The one difference, though, I would say, and it's funny because I only watched the last season of Game of Thrones. So I had no idea what was happening. And the last season was terrible. So in my eyes, Game of Thrones is just terrible.
That may be the worst way to watch that show.
But
Congrats on picking the worst way.
But the night fight, whatever, I felt like everybody was all watching at the same time across social media about the lighting was terrible and all that. So if it's on that grand of a scale, I think that's the only moment. Besides that, I mean, that's one aspect. If it's a weekly rollout, the other one is like if it's all at once and be like, oh, White Lotus, like what's going on there? If they release all 7 at once, so it depends on what the rollout of the movie is or the TV show is.
It's let me say this: complete foul. If we're playing fair or foul on this, is when a Netflix series or something that's released all at once is released. If someone immediately has a write-up spoiling
the binge
in a tweet, what happens in the finale or what happens in the show?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's like a 3 to 6 month. You can't just post the whole series. Like, here's what happens in the finale. Like not immediately. Like, that has to be something that takes a lot of time.
If it's posted but it's that good, it's not going to take you 3 months to get through it.
Right. Like Ozark comes out, which we were into.
Yeah.
And if someone came in and said, here's what happens in the final, like immediately because they've seen all of them in succession right when it was done, I would have a big problem with that.
But when that happens, I completely agree with you, like on that aspect. But that's when you would mute the words. You know what I mean? Like you have to mute like the word Ozark if you're not going to watch it for weeks and they're all out.
And then you have everyone tweeting like you would if you're following a fan base of a team and it's like, oh, great save, and that's just it. and like if you're like, oh, I'm assuming they're talking about the team that they're a fan of, but it's like. There's no context to it.
But can we all agree though?
I do kind of like that though. Like if I'm trying to record a sporting event and I happen to see something, I'm like, well, I know it's 7:34 p.m. Something happened that was crazy because three people said, "Wow," all at the same time.
Live play-by-play.
Allie in our YouTube chat, this is amazing, says, even though Chad just spoiled that for me, has not seen the episode yet, I thought to myself, well, at least I won't know when it's coming. Then 3 minutes later, he went on to say, about 20 minutes in.
21:33 in.
Everything happens. I'm so sorry, Allie. I really didn't know that.
What you can do now?
If you like the show, then you would know by now.
Instead of skip the intro, you could skip until when Chad didn't spoil the episode.
I did think, though, Guns, if you, like what you did with Game of Thrones, just watch the final season. Like, what if someone heard buzz about Succession and just said, hey, I'm going to tune in to this episode? And they saw that episode, which was, I think, a masterclass of performances.
It's winning all the awards.
Oh, my goodness. It was incredible. But if you're watching this, you think, what is this? Like, why is this so important? Like, what is going on? Because it's I'm going to spoil something else there. It's an off-screen death, right? You don't see it. It's all from the perspective of getting that phone call. I mean, it's
lived
great.
it, but I'm like cringe. But this is why we need
By
these
the end
rules.
of the episode, was he resurrected?
Breaking up.
It was Easter Sunday. Was he resurrected, Chad? Did you spoil that for me too?
It's amazing, yeah. Spoiler alert, guys. It gets better in 2 days.
He died off camera, but came back to life on camera.
Gets better in 2 days, I promise.
Yes.
It's a great show.
That's mortifying.
So you also
what you just did.
What
gave it all away.
No
but
apologies.
it is 3 days. It's Wednesday, so you broke the
I'm sorry,
3 day
Allie.
we're allowed.
Allie is the one Succession fan who has no clue what's happened. And I'm legitimately sorry to Allie, the one person who by now doesn't know. You also wrote, Guns, about participation trophies and what's going on is it North Carolina?
It's North Carolina.
This is happening?
Yeah.
A bill has
us
been
the
introduced
latest.
to ban them?
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, I've written about it. I've been vocal about it. I think this participation trophy, everybody deserves a ribbon. Everybody deserves an award. I think that's the dumbing down of America. I don't think we should celebrate mediocrity. I don't think that we should, we should always strive to be the best. We're the United States of America. We're human beings. You should always want to be better than you are. And once you start, rewarding yourself for not being that, for just showing up, I think that does have a detrimental, effect on society, especially the younger that you go. And now, a North Carolina state senator has introduced a bill, and it's getting a lot of support so far, that would ban youth sports leagues from having participation trophies. And my argument is a couple of things here. One is, this is a Republican, and if you're a Republican, you shouldn't want more government intervention. All right. Two is, on some aspects, and I write this in my OutKick article, I feel like participation trophies and ribbons and stuff is good up until like the age of 8. If you're young, you don't know what you're doing. Even adults still have no idea. I mean, talk to college kids. They don't know what they're doing with their lives. So you think a 5-year-old's going to know? I think they should be able to experience and try out as many different things as possible. And if it takes an award or something to make them feel good, that could be the thing that makes them want to drive and pursue that further. Now, when you get to 8, 9, 10 years old, that's when I think you start developing more and you're like, hey, the life isn't fair, okay? So that's one aspect. The other aspect is, I mean, really, what are we doing here? Do we really want the government to get involved in our trophies, in our school and sports leagues? Come on, and you're a Republican. Don't do that. What are you doing tarnishing? That's something like AOC would do. That's such a political ploy. What are you doing? That's desperate.
Well, look, Republicans are just as guilty at political ploys as Democrats, first and foremost. And as the lone parent on this panel, let me weigh in on this. Yeah. Ridiculous that this guy, just for attention, is, I assume it's a guy, a Republican guy,
Yes.
is wanting to ban participation trophies. It's a complete waste of government time and stupid. I, too, am against the participation trophy generation. I'm against trophies in general. We got trophies for participating in Little League teams when we were little, and I thought that was stupid then, that everyone just got the same trophy at the end of the year, at your team pizza banquet or whatever.
Yes.
I just think trophies are outdated. Now, I will say, and I will defend this to the death, because I think there are some parents who probably are against this.
Cash?
I coach 8 and under softball, and every girl on my team is going to get a game ball.
Yeah.
Whether they're good or not.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to have a moment where they're going to get one. Now, I think there are some parents who are like, no, if my daughter's the best every game, or she hits a home run every game, she should get multiple game balls.
This is the reason for participation trophies, though.
It's not. It's kind of a league suggestion. It's not a rule, right? But my rule as the coach is, when they're this little, they're going to have a moment where I'm going to honor them after the game, and their parents can video it, and they're going to get a game ball.
Okay.
Even if little Susie is in the outfield not paying attention the whole time and gets one hit all year, well, she's going to get a game ball when she gets that hit. But some would say, well, that's the participation trophy generation coming out. And I say, no, I want kids to enjoy what they're doing.
Second place.
Also, right?
Or last place. Yeah.
So
that's almost like rewarding.
That's why I'm against this guy and this whole thing.
Individual accomplishment. If you can find one small thing that this person did good and they can get something out of it, I think that works, rather than just be a broad, hey, you paid your fee, here's a trophy.
Well, and just in general, I'm just against the kind of look at me like I'm doing this for votes. Right, for one party or the other move, and that's what this was.
Chad, 2 rules, Guns, about Chad when he coaches. Number 1, everyone gets a game ball at least one time during the season. Number 2, if you think you can pitch better than me, come take the baseball from me.
That's right. That's my rule with the parents.
Yeah.
If there's any question about my strike zone or my pitching ability, it's just a simple move where I just take the softball and I go and hand it to him. Said, "All right, you're up. Let's go. Let's see what you got. Get that arm loose. You might want to go put some shorts on. Not a lot of breathable space in those jeans you're wearing right now, sir. Come on out here."
You guys brought up the parents, and a lot of it has to do with the parents. I mean, you look at what's going on in schools across the country. I have family members that are teachers. It's very difficult because no parent wants to hear that their kid might not be as smart as others. And teachers right now are kind of being held back because you can't hold the student back because there might be a lawsuit, or you might be called racist, or you know what I mean? So it's very difficult. A lot of it comes from the parents. And coming off this participation trophy kind of argument and whatnot is a story that I did a couple months ago where that entitlement, or just we have to protect everybody, woe the children, etc., is the Gen Z, or I should say millennial parents right now, are not teaching their kids about Santa Claus. Remember, I did this a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Because
this is our generation.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, Santa Claus might not be real.
For those kids, yeah, maybe.
Because
maybe, we still haven't figured it out yet, but yeah.
It's real to me.
They're worried about the effect that it might have when they find out that he might not be real. This is how much you're coddling. But then you look at China and these other countries that are going to surpass us. The world isn't fair. The world's not a utopia. You have to be tough. You can't, these parents are sometimes it's about them themselves rather than their child. You're setting your child up for failure. You have to be able to compete. You need to be able to want to get better, to have a drive. You can't expect handouts out there all the time. I don't understand why we are dumbing ourselves down so much that we can't even tell our kids about Santa Claus, or that we come on. Am I wrong here? I mean, I don't have kids, but I'm a realist. Come on.
Guns is going to coach my next slow pitch softball game.
You need a pump-up talk? You need a hype man before in that
No,
huddle?
Guns and I are going to show up and call it.
Yeah, you call the game, and then I'm going to get tossed when
You
guys
are
make
looking
the
live.
That's
We
right.
got
Field 12.
We got Lucy in the right field picking dandelions. Dandelions out.
Wait, there's a parent that's challenging Chad to pitch a strike.
I did have a moment last night where two kids at one point, I swear the ball was hit at the outfield, and it was like parting of the Red Sea. They split and ran the opposite way away from the ball. I'm like, why are we running away from a ball that's now sitting
Why did I pay
still
to practice?
in the outfield? Yeah,
that's so good.
Paying money to practice. Guns, always fun, man. You bring the energy.
Hot
Thank you
Mike.
so much.
Let's go. Mic'd up on Hot Mike. Love
Thanks
you
for
guys.
coming in. Mike Gunselman, you can read his work. Great work at OutKick.com.
You can see him on the Warp Tour.
Yeah, on the Warp Tour.
The Vans Warp Tour. Is this still the Vans Warp Tour?
Yeah, it's no longer around, unfortunately, because of photos like that, probably.
Oh.
Yeah, so it had its run, but no longer around. But hey, you can check me and hunting out at Bush concerts with Gavin Rossdale.
Blame participation trophy generation for the banning of
Crowd
the
surfing
Vans
with Gavin
Warped Tour.
Rossdale.
It's all,
Everybody couldn't get
it all comes back to that.
Everybody couldn't get the front row, so they had to just cancel it because it wasn't fair.
These weaklings.
Not a citizen, but an entire town, a city, trolled and catfished. That's next on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll them, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper rational. They looked at the data and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of a Southern legend.
So, Davey told me about this, Chad, yesterday right after the show. There's Newark, New Jersey, tricked into becoming sister cities with a Hindu nation, okay? They announce it. Everything's great, except the country doesn't exist.
The country or the city?
The Hindu nation doesn't exist.
So it's a city in the Hindu nation?
They sister cities with a Hindu nation is what they signed up to or agreed to do. The nation of...
I would have questions. First off,
Kailasa?
What is a Hindu nation?
The nation of Kailasa.
The nation of Kailasa. So for a city to not know that a country
Fooled into
doesn't
signing
exist...
a sister cities agreement with a fake country is the headline.
So...
They had a ceremony.
This is much
They held
worse
a ceremony for this.
when you find out that the country didn't exist. Like a city, that's dumb in its own right if you didn't do your research and find out the city didn't exist. But the fact they just made up a country.
But the two women representing the nation of Kailasa, I don't know if I'm saying this right. It doesn't matter. It doesn't exist. They showed up for the ceremony.
Was Borat with them? Was Sacha Baron Cohen a part of this?
That's a great tie.
This bit, I mean, this is so dumb that what's the fake country Borat was from that he made up? I mean, it sounds like that. Like they're part of the next Sacha Baron Cohen sketch or movie and they didn't realize it. And they just accepted.
What was it, Davey?
No, he's actually from Kazakhstan.
Oh, he was. So that's a real country, yeah. But it was a made up.
Oh, no, they didn't make up where they made up the whole background of him though, right?
Davey, what is the made up country again?
Kailasa.
It's a Hindu nation?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Sister Cities program was created, I think, in the 1950s, and it's where just a city in the United States links up with a country or a territory.
Chad, here's the photo.
No, I understand. I talked recently about
here's the ceremony
all the sister cities of Nashville, if you remember.
Yes.
That you can go to the Music City Center and see all of them on the wall. There's like 8 of them.
The guy that created this fake nation is also a scam artist that's currently also on the run for rape. And so he's wanted. And so it's like he managed to trick Newark. The biggest thing is nobody decided just to do a simple Google search.
Yeah.
But then they sent the two women garbed in whatever from the nation for the ceremony. Again, trolled. We can't let it happen here.
Real bad.
We're back at it tomorrow. Hot mic across the OutKick network.